comment if you want to.
Yeah. But we can't comment.
You went live right when he walked away. You would do that.
Hey,
you would do that.
Hold on a second. He walked away right when I went live. What's up to all our sidekicks and henchmen out there in the Geek Nation? You're watching there he is. Thank you for joining us on this very special edition of the CultPop podcast, wherein we will review this week's books. We will talk about some letters, some correspondence, and then we will do some gutter talk, which is, some conversation around the world of pop culture. I'm your host, Johnny Destructo. With me this week is Len.
Yo, what's up? Holla at your boy.
And also...
Hey, hi, I'm Brian, and I'm here, right below Jay-Z.
And then...
Oh, hi. Hi, yeah, my name is Noel. I'm here also today in this stream and on this podcast. With these guys.
There you go. That's so, like I said, we've got correspondence.
We got correspondence?
This is from Christopher St. Saucy Goodnight. Oh, no. He said it's questions for Gutter Talk, though, which is at the end of the show. Should I wait till the end of the show to read it?
Sure. Let's wait.
All right. Well, we're here to talk about this week's books. What's first, Noel?
I don't have the notes up. I just sent them.
First up is Hedra for some reason. Hedra, that's at the top of the list. I don't know why. Written and arted by Jesse Long. Diamond has this to say: in a glorious exploration of the comics medium with echoes of 2001: A Space Odyssey, Flash Gordon, Chris Ware, and Mobius, a lone astronaut leaves a world ravaged by nuclear war in search of life. What she finds is beyond all explanation. So the first thing you're going to notice about this book, as soon as you put it in your little hands, is that it's big. It's a big boy. It's like magazine sized. The second thing you're going to notice when you, thank you, Noel, when you flip through it, is that how many panels? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. Was that like a 30 panel grid on each page?
It's almost, yeah. It doesn't. It falls out
30.
of that sequence
30.
a little bit, but
yeah.
It's always there in your mind, but it changes, sometimes.
But it does change.
Yeah.
So my response to this book is, it is immaculately put together with panels, with the negative space especially, and it sort of feels a little bit like Jeff Lemire art style wise, as far as like facial structure and the cartooning of it. But I did find it mildly impenetrable. This is one you got to work for, is what I'm saying. And hopefully someone can explain the very, very end to me before we finish reviewing the book. But I thought it was really cool, and it's certainly something that I don't see very often in the comic book realm. What did you think, Brian?
I really liked it. Now, full disclosure, I was primed to like it because Noel was like, Brian would like this.
Oh no! I said I look forward to Brian explaining this to us.
You did.
Because it's like one of those. It's definitely felt like it was in his wheelhouse. One of those things that are just like, who would find greater meaning from this? Brian.
Cool.
I think Brian would. Yeah.
And then so maybe I was like, I'm gonna find some greater meaning in this, and then enjoyed that. But so if that was the case, it all worked out well because I really liked it. Now. At the top, let's talk about the end. I agree with you, JD. I found myself feeling like it could have used just a little bit more about right now. But I mean that literally. Like I thought it carried the story through, like the whole way. I just wanted a little bit more about the Hedra or Hedra. I'm not sure because they are Hedron, I thought that revelation was kind of cool. They're geometric, what a Hedra or Hedra is. I would have liked a little bit more about what happens with her. Why is she only partially transformed? Is that a step in the process? She seemed to pull away. And then maybe just a little bit more about, as part of that, what these Hedra are, right?
I have a notion as to why.
Okay.
So she helped the Hedra,
right?
And in response, so she is on a mission to explore the cosmos to save the war-torn Earth, the post-apocalyptic Earth.
Mm-hmm.
After her saving the Hydra, whatever. In response, or as a thank you, he gives her this gift of whatever power. Yeah,
I saw it a little bit differently than that.
She halfway through the process, or towards the beginning of the process, kind of stops it, saying, "I don't want to lose my humanity. I want to use piece of this gift that you gave me to go deal with." It was almost like before she completely let go, she had to go back to Earth and share her gift, and then bounce, because the end just has her like leaving the already healed or now hexagonal Earth. Yeah.
Right, that's the thing. So she brings life back to the planet, but it is different, right? Like that life is different than was there before. But then as she leaves, if you guys go to the last page, it changes her bubble, right? As she flies off, her bubble starts out as circular and then becomes, on the last page, like a very geometric thing. That could symbolize the totality of transformation, for her.
Yeah, that's kind of how I took it too. Yeah. Like her job was done, so she could give in and ascend now to become this other being. Yeah.
And also, I even with that, I would have liked a little bit, but where would it be, right? I like that as the final page. Maybe you could do an epilogue with them sitting there. My impression was not just a gift, but that she was a missing Hydra, right? When they're in their Hydra palace, they which looks
Hydra Dome?
Hydra Dome, did you say?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Which looks awesome. There is like a scene where each of the Hydra are there, and they've got their Hydra on top of them, and one of them is dotted and absent, right? So I assumed that it was her. And this panel where she has been transformed and she is looking sort of aghast and in wonder at her arm, and you see the other ones there with just their arms down in that classic like austere power pose. That's a very cool panel.
So I took that as so they all didn't really look the same. So I think it's like I thought it was just whenever they find a being worthy, doesn't matter what origin they are. So they're all different races or types of aliens. And then she was the next one picked. That he didn't like give her a heads up what was going to happen. So her arm starts to change. She freaks out, and they're all just like, no, this is all of us. So
yeah, we all went through this. Yeah. So you think she goes like at the end? She is one of the Hydra, having completed on Earth. I can see that.
Yeah. I don't, because even like the next page of that scene you're talking about, she's essentially telling them like, no, I have to go back to Earth. I have to like finish my mission. I'm not saying no, just hey.
Thank you. That was the part I really struggled with. I moved it. Where'd it go? Yeah, that. I didn't realize that was her sort of like telling them about her planet.
Yeah, it was like, and she, she's got the shape above her that like she's not refusing it. She's just like, that's cool, but let me tell you, I got all this other stuff, and I had a mission, and shows the Earth, and like, yeah, maybe can I do that? And then she goes and does it.
The use of circles or circular sort of direction in this is really cool, and I saw it again there, where it's the front of her helmet is a circle. The back of the thing reflecting the Earth, and then circles leading down into a jagged square page that she brings this circle to. The way that it directs your eye in this book is phenomenal.
Yeah, I want to tell you something real quick. Also,
nope, not today.
Whoops. Here we go. You can see they use circles to show you the arc of the slicing, which is really cool. Like you can follow the motion of the sword as she's slicing it at people. And then talking about the negative space, when he goes to sit up and he bonks his head on the top of the panels above him, awesome.
Yeah.
There's I forget, it must have been something. Kindred. We read it for book club. one of the things that I was, if anyone's ever read that book, the graphic novel version of it, the panel layout is very static, and it's very it's like the whole thing is almost 9 panels, and you don't really get motion between the panels. It's literally just like almost like play setups, like stage, there's no action or kinetic activity between the panels to kind of like use the art form. This is the complete opposite of that, where it was so kinetic, going completely through, almost just like, water going through rocks, which was just really, really cool. At first it was off-putting, like, what the fuck am I looking at? Not even reading, what am I looking at? But then it starts to kind of like flow in a really cool way. And I would highly suggest people get it physical if they can, especially something like this. The large format and the 30 panels is just, it's pretty wild. This was cool. I hated how much I kind of dug this.
I think my one, besides, sort of confusion at some of the storytelling, because there are no words and it's not in abundantly clear what's happening at the end. I think the one thing that was problematic for me was the drawings of the creatures. Those guys were just, there's so many little details in there that it's so muddy that it's hard to tell exactly what's happening with those characters. But otherwise it's wonderful. Len.
Yes.
I don't know if you wanted to be on the show or.
I do. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you so much. The first thing I felt when I was reading this book, first of all, I don't know, we've spoken about the art, we've spoken about the panel layout. I don't know if we necessarily hit it on the head that this is a silent book. There are no words in this book, ladies and gentlemen. So the storytelling has to be, top notch. It has to work overtime to not only tell the story, but like Noel said, direct your eyes across the page, across the very challenging panel layouts. And I was reminded, like, you're right, JD. It does have like the art style, a little bit of Jeff Lemire, even though I could definitely see the Mobius influence in there as well, big time. But I was reminded of some of the work of, now his name just blew my mind. Just J.H. Williams, the guy that the Batwoman. In that his panel layouts would be so intricate and so beautiful that it would be distracting. So you would be stopping on every page and you would lose track of the story. You'd lose track of where your eyes are supposed to follow. The art doesn't get in the way. It's storytelling first. And maybe that's because of it being silent. And so it knows that it has to work overtime, and it knows that simple is better. The simpler you keep it, the easier it is for you to follow it. Yes, like JD said, those creatures, they were a little, kind of got like a lot of like a whole lot of needling in the artwork that can make it hard to see what's happening with them. And the one thing that distracted to me about them is that because they were so kind of like grotesque looking, it was almost like you knew they had to be the bad guys. And so I kind of like that hit me on the head, because there are so few characters in there. It's like, oh, here are the bad guys, and lo and behold, they are the bad guys. So I bumped on that a little bit, but overall, this was like the best of Flash Gordon, down to the rocket ship design, which is based on the original Flash Gordon from the 30s. So it definitely evokes that imagery of it. I follow the story. I follow the panel layout. I was there. It was one of 2 books this week that I was mad that I was reading in a digital form, because I would have loved to just have this in the physical form. And I think this would be not only a great comic book for your collection, I think this would be an interesting comic book if you are so inclined to be a person that has a coffee table and has a coffee table book, and likes to have things on your coffee table. Buy a couple of copies of this and leave one on your coffee table. I would.
If I was maybe a 5th, 6th grade literature teacher or English teacher,
yeah,
I would use this because I would want the art and the effort of just with pictures telling a story, but then also interpreting a story for young readers would be rad as hell. You know, like tell me what happened. Why do you think that? What made you think that? Like showing them the connection between, you know, moving pictures and actual narrative art form. This is awesome for that.
It's also awesome to teach to artists. There are a lot of artists out there who, and I don't mean just sequential artists, you know, doing comic books or comic strips. There are a lot of artists alone who could pick up on some of the simplicity of, but still detailed line work that is in this book, man. This is a book that just keeps on giving.
Yo, I'd put pages of this on my wall as a poster. There's that, like, when she first leaves and you get this like arcane symbology page. That shit is awesome. When she rises up with the Hydra is great. Len, you made me think of like J.H. Williams or even like Swamp Thing that we read the other day. Was different panel layouts, right? But whereas they use the panel layouts to tell and further the story and to emphasize certain things or whatever, they don't, and I'm not sure I have ever seen somebody use the panel layout and the white space as part of the motion of the story, or like when JD pointed out the head thing, when he bangs his head on the panel, or when they rise up, there's one, they're rising up within that alien planet. Yeah. And the panel swoops after them, you know, like I don't, and the circular leading, you know, when they're out in space. Right. I think that was a first for me to have seen. It's awesome.
I was trying to look it up real quick, but I think I read that this was digital first in pieces.
It was
before being printed.
Yeah.
What? Oh yeah, it was in the back thing, wasn't it? Yeah.
In the back thing, he said that. Yeah.
Again, you know, like if. This flowed relatively well enough for a silent issue, just one full thing. I have no idea how it would have read digital on whatever screen people are using, but whatever size. So you don't really, you can't really control the aspect ratio. But then also in pieces, maybe it would have been easier in pieces because you've got like a week or days in between each little like 2-page of
depending on
next, right?
Depending on how much you get, like it is kind of broken up in the classic serialized sci-fi way.
Yeah.
Like we're here at this planet, now we're here at this planet, and then here. So,
yeah. And I think it's cool on that last page where he talks about, you know, he gives his thank yous and everything. And that's where he mentions that this was originally in a newsprint edition that was online or at different shows he was. If you look at the artwork there, the story continues because you see like the little grotesque creature has now figured out how to fly the Flash Gordon ship. And like, you don't know what's going to happen now. This is good stuff. Good stuff.
Man. I
did not notice that.
I didn't notice that?
I even read that text and I was like, it's just, you know, I'll move on.
Nice. Right, because she left the rocket ship. She didn't need it anymore.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I like this even more now.
Nice. I often find that after we talk about a book, I will feel better about the book.
Cool. Yeah.
You guys.
You weren't feeling the book for the most part, JD?
Oh, I was. Yeah. But I'm just saying, as an aside, these chats with you guys always help me appreciate a book more than I did previously.
Got you.
Yeah. Move on to. Here we go. We did it. There it is. Batman Superman 10 by Joshua Williamson and Clayton Henry. Devastation in Gotham City. Following the events of a massive explosion in Midtown, Batman and Superman pick up the pieces to learn who rigged the atomic skull like a bomb. And will they do it again? all will be revealed as the horrific plan of the Ultra-Humanite rains terror down on the lives of the Dark Knight and the Man of Steel. This was fun. This was very sort of just classic DC comic booking.
Yeah.
Nothing big and crazy, but it was fun and it was energetic. I don't have too much to say about it because, again, it wasn't big and crazy. But I did think it was a nice little,
Did you guys read the last issue? We didn't talk about the last issue, right?
I started reading this and I was like, ooh, this is cool and fun. Oh, it's part 2? And then I just went back and read.
It was weird. Like, first of all, I agree with you guys. This is comic booking. This is really fun. This feels like, I know that's grotesque and awesome. This feels like the how the title was, in the early 2000s with Jeff Loeb doing weird stuff. But it was big punch and fun, right? As much as I like Clayton Henry, it was a weird turn from Darrington to him between issues 8 and 9. So 9 was a little weird, but this one totally grooves, and some of that Ultra-Humanite art is just awesome, which JD just showed. This is a cool story. This book is just really cool.
I love the art. I love Clayton Henry.
So do I.
His pencils and inks are so tight. It's really nice. I think the only problem I have with this issue is for some reason he has elongated everyone's foreheads.
Yeah, I noticed that.
They all got long faces.
Especially the Ultra-Humanite, right? His brain is coming out the top of his head.
Cool, interesting or cool. I saw that Joshua Williamson is leaving Flash, but the book is gaining Clayton Henry as the normal artist.
That's cool.
I don't know the writer though. Never even heard of the dude.
Hopefully it'll be good. Oh, you've heard who it is, but you just don't recognize him. Yeah.
I think his last name is like Schnick or something like that. Schnick.
I don't know.
Yeah, I literally have never read anything that they've ever done. But I figured you would want to know that.
I do. Thank you. I thought the same. We read and loved the Nick Darrington.
Yeah.
Okay. And we all of us loved it, I think. And then I was like, but it's not going to be that story and they're those guys anymore. And it wasn't, but it was still a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it also made me think, nothing to do with the book, but Ultra-Humanite they introduced him as like the original supervillain somewhere. He was the first Superman main antagonist, right? And I was just thinking, what if that had been the case? He wasn't always the gorilla. He changes brains. Can you imagine the different path the story would have gone? How many people would have turned out to secretly have been the Ultra-Humanite over the decades? Yeah. Lois Lane probably a few times in the Silver Age.
You just created a Secret Invasion style event for DC that stems all the way back where they could just add anybody to be Ultra-Humanite.
Yeah.
Well, I mean that was basically the plot line of a great Elseworlds by James Robinson and Paul Smith, The Golden Age. So pick that up and check that out. You'll love that. I like this book. I enjoyed this book a lot. I couldn't help but feel to a degree that I was reading Superman and Batman in the Invincible universe, because in the Invincible comic book, he fought some robots that were created from dead humans.
The Reanimen.
The Reanimen who kept coming back and back and back over the run of that book. He had a character who was larger than life with his brain, but was, you thought maybe was out for to help humanity, but actually he was a bit of a psycho. I think he was Dragon Man or Alligator Man or whatever the hell. The art was reminiscent of some of the best of Invincible to me. It's not a knock. It's just that's how it felt to me.
The coloring is very Invincible. The coloring style is super Invincible.
Yeah. And then the one thing that did kind of the Ultra-Humanite definitely has always been depicted as a very intelligent villain. So I dig that he would be able to capture Batman, but I don't understand, and this is just comic books. I know it's comic books being comic books. I don't understand that you're going to do a surgery on Batman and then put his clothes neatly back on so that he doesn't realize he's had surgery. Plus, this isn't Lex Luthor swapping his brain with the Flash and realizing I don't know who the hell this is. The second you take Batman's mask off, you've got most of your problem solved because he's one of the most famous men in the world underneath that mask. So if anything, I'm no longer calling you Batman. I'm like, Brucey, Brucey boy.
Those are all Franklin for sure, but
it was done up the nose with just like a little stick. It like he didn't have to remove anything. It was orthoscopic. Just
it was
like,
a COVID test. It was just boop.
Yeah,
there you go.
Like he got in there from the navel cavity. It's fine.
That's a good
nasal cavity. Sorry.
I ruffled my feathers at the same thing, Len. I was like, oh, really?
I didn't think about it at all.
While you slept.
Yeah, I didn't.
There are no repercussions physically.
But that reveal, that line was awesome. You know what I mean? Those are all fine points, and I love to hear about them. But being like, oh, I do enjoy being a proper villain. I didn't want to.
That was pretty cool. Yeah,
that was cool. Oh yeah, it was all set up for that line.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, that's sort of part and parcel for this book itself, right? Like that's
true.
It's like big and kind of, well, not big, but it's like small and fun. With sort of, they use a lot of comic book logic in this series. Joshua Williams does. This is probably what other stuff besides the Flash, which I don't like. What does Joshua Williamson write?
Ooh,
I don't know.
This
something.
I almost said Hawkman, but that's Venditti. Joshua Williamson is going to be taking over Justice League, I believe, right? For at least for the death metal stuff.
Oh, okay.
Is he the one that's doing it now? The Spectre story? No. Okay.
No.
I was about to say this is probably the best thing that Josh Williamson, like the thing I'm enjoying the most out of Josh Williamson, but then I didn't want to be like forgetting some big book that he's writing that I'm enjoying.
He did Nailbiter.
Nailbiter? Okay.
So yes, this is what I'm doing. Yeah.
Did he write the last arc too?
Yeah, he's done this book since Jump. So that's actually what I like most about this book is that it's not one thing for 20 issues. It's literally like other than that first 6 issues that dealt with that had no resolution and dealt with the Batman Who Laughs and stuff. It has just been anthology almost, just like 2 to 3 story arcs, a different artist. This should be a showcase book, and it is. And that's actually why I think it's really tight and fun and comic booky. I like it a lot.
DC Cybernetic Summer Special #1. Written by Corina Bechko, Joshua Williamson, Max Bemis, Steve Orlando, etc. With art by Gabriel Hardman, Nicola Scott, Greg Smallwood, Coley Hamner, etc. In this sizzling summertime anthology special, Harley Quinn and Cyborgman conquer a truly titanic waterslide. Cyborg Superman and Cyborg Superman find it difficult to have a conversation, much less and Batman tries everything to escape a summer cookout, even taking on the omnipotent brother I and his newly infectious Omax. And it goes on for another paragraph. But basically, we just have a summer special. It's an anthology. You got a bunch of different people doing a bunch of different stuff that's called cybernetically referencing the cybernetics of Cybertron. I petered out. My brain just
you powering down, just like
my cybernetics are failing. I think there is some good stuff in here. Overall, it didn't enhance my week very much. What did you guys think, Len?
I was just like you. I was petering out as I was reading this book, and that was on page 4. It's just this was just boring to me. I mean, it was kind of cool to see the Metal Men and Platinum and Wonder Woman run around, and Nicola Scott's artwork on that was cool. And there's some fun bits, like the Robot Man story is kind of it's good art. But for the most part, this was just a bore to me, which is fine. It's a dumb little summer book. It's a tryout. They're giving people work. You got money, here, keeping y'all busy while y'all sitting in at home. So God bless. And the theme was, cybernetic robot things. Okay, whatever. Make it work. They hand-fisted Harlequin in there because you've got to put her into everything. But
that was bad.
But you know what? Hey, I'm not going to be mad because for 20 years they've been doing it with Batman. So if they now are hand-fisting a woman character into everything, God bless. So
touche.
But Batman is still here.
Well, true.
Yeah. But only when Batman's still there, though. It's not a swap. Let's be
true.
clear.
But no, what led the write up was Harlequin because they know what was going to get people to the yard. Yeah. So it is what it is. It's whatever.
I liked the Flash one. I thought the Flash one was really good with art by what is his name? David LaFuente.
Yeah, I thought the art was good, but I mean,
I didn't like the story.
The art was good in a lot of these. Like, I think the art was the Red Tornado one. I think is the only one that nobody's mentioned so far. But it was really cool.
There's like 8 we haven't mentioned so far. So I counted really fast. There's 10 stories in here. I really, really liked 4 of them. That's a terrible batting average. So I really liked the first, that one, the Blue Beetle and Booster Gold one is so stupid. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Because those are the 2 characters that would do something that's stupid. I really, really, really liked the Superboy and Legion of Superheroes one.
Really,
the art was fantastic, and just the conceit of the alien falling in love in Superman's robot body is so fun.
And then the end.
I really liked the Robot Man one, which you mentioned by Greg Smallwood and Max Bemis.
Yeah,
and the Apollo Midnighter one was pretty good, but it wasn't in my top 4. The other one was the first one, Karina Becko and Gabriel Hartman. I'll watch them do like a phone book narration. I love their art style and writing.
Okay.
So like it was a stupid story, but I loved looking at it.
Yeah, I didn't even get anything out of the art. Like generally, I like Gabriel Hardman, but the art on that one didn't really move me. I think the best looking one is either David LaFuente or the Marguerite Sauvage.
Which one was that?
That was actually the Harley Quinn one.
The Harley Quinn one
looked great. Her art style is wonderful. But again, the story. Oh, actually, you know what? One part actually made me laugh out loud, and that was the cannoli truck. It's a hot summer treat, but everyone is leaking cannoli everywhere.
Yeah.
That is funny.
I loved the Nicola Scott art, especially because I've been reading Black Magic, and I'm fully in love with Nicola Scott, even though I kind of liked her before.
That's the Metal Man.
Yeah, hated the story. I thought it was the dumbest thing.
The Monster Riot, thread.
Because they were watching their favorite anime, and they decided to become they got brainwashed into becoming an anime monster, and just so happens Wonder Woman's there. It was very slight. I didn't like it, but the art was just great.
I think this is probably the first special book that I've ever seen that has a hook, the cybernetic summer thing. You know what I mean? Whereas, I mean, we've seen holiday specials and that, right? Yeah. But one that they just for no reason, it's not like everyone's school's out, time for cyborg parts during the summer.
Yeah. Well, right?
Right.
They've been doing a summer special for a while. I think they just decided to make this one robots.
It's like that song, "School's Out for Cyborgs."
Yeah. Now that you sing it.
Yeah.
I needed you to start the lyric, and I would have just immediately got it. Yeah.
Right. But I did enjoy it, and partially because I was so I read it real late last night, and I was falling asleep. But I guess I was like, how's this gonna go? And then I was like, oh, it was just like little short stories, some more than others. This did you guys get a Mike Allred feel from the Red Tornado story?
I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah. So I enjoyed that. But yeah.
I forgot that Red Tornado had a family.
He does.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I mean,
you guys aren't that close, so I mean, you haven't. It's been a while.
We haven't been invited to the barbecues. That's the next summer special. Red Tornado barbecues.
No, they do. It was not recent either. I remember in Brad Meltzer's run, I think that was referenced, and so like as something that was already the case. It was so Vision had a family, and Red Tornado had just previously gotten a family, and it was another one of those like cross company coincidences.
To mess with the close, so on the screen, Randy has said your closed captioning is making this even funnier, which is a feature on YouTube. They attempt to do closed captioning. Can we just do gibberish for like 20 seconds to make it just explode? Like skip it, Okay, so you guys mentioned, or I think it was Len that mentioned, books like these are kind of almost just like a staging ground. Like, hey, writers, we're going to commission you to try some stuff, and if we like it or if it's popular, then maybe we'll give you larger stuff, right? That's usually what these kind of books are. Like, it's anchored by 2 or 3 names, but then it's a lot of like little stories. I will look up Liz Erickson and Nick Varelli, the two that did the Legion of Superheroes Superboy book, because
so fun and Silver Agey.
But it was what was it, like 8 pages, and it was incredibly complete. It was super satisfying. Like, it was a perfect little story. I would like to see either this writer or artist do something else too.
I really like
it worked.
The Apollo and Midnighter one. The fact that what's his name? The monkey.
Monsieur Malat.
Monsieur Malat.
Yeah. And the brain, right?
Yeah.
I never realized that they were like an item. That's so cute.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that new? Is that for this story, or they've always been like, I love you?
I don't know about always, but it's been a while.
Yeah, I don't know if it's ever been hit on as hard on the nose as it was with this one. But I think it's kind of like been like subtext.
Oh, you know what? They are a Doom Patrol villain pair, and Grant Morrison wrote Doom Patrol for a while, and I would bet money on, not a lot, but that Grant Morrison is the one that introduced them being a couple.
It's real cute. But
I didn't know who they were.
Oh yeah.
It was cute.
Yeah, I like the line at the end, the world's finest couple, since they are obviously Superman and Batman, you know.
I did like that. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm always a sucker for when superheroes are out of their superhero outfits, but then they still somehow reflect their costume.
Yeah, me too.
Them Apollo and Midnighter Speedos.
So you love the Marvel swimsuit swimsuit edition?
I really would love them to do more with these two characters. Like, earlier this year, I read the Grayson run from New 52 or Rebirth, New 52. I don't even know. Where Midnighter was actually a foil for a good chunk of the book. So DC was doing stuff with the two characters, and then like Apollo kind of showed up for a hot second. But it seems like they just haven't figured out what they want to do or anything that's consistent. But I didn't love this story, but I just love seeing them. Mm-hmm. Oh, also too, I had read The Wildstorm earlier this year, and they are a prominent part of the second half of that. Right. I love these characters. They're just never anywhere.
I know. Reading this made me want to go back and pull out my authority absolute to see early Brian Hitch drawing them.
Less rubbery.
Yeah. Good Hitch, man. He was still trying to ape Alan Davis a little bit. But I like the story. I like some of the stories. The Legion story definitely like struck hit me in my feels because I'm a Legion guy. And just having this summer book, like Noel said, they've been doing summer books for years. DC. And, you know, JD may remember there was a time in the 80s and 90s when they were doing summer book. All the comic book companies were doing summer books. This actually made me remember, and I just went to go look it up. I remember Art Adams got his big start doing Gumby specials, one for the summer and then one for the winter. And they were just big, dumb, fun, absurd books. And back when he did them, people had lost track of Gumby as well. They thought it was going to be Eddie Murphy running around in this joint, but it was the actual Gumby. It was actual Gumby and Pokey, and it was fun. It was a whole lot of fun. And then it made me remember you, Brian, bringing up Allred. His first comic book, the book that put him on a Madman. He one time did a summer special with Madman, which was a crossover with Superman, and it was Madman meets Superman with Mike Allred art, and it was dumb fun. I think there's like 3 pages of them just sitting on a ledge, just having a conversation. It was dumb, crazy fun, man. That's what summer fun comic books were about. And then you, Noel, just to keep it in the family, I hit everybody, brought up about, no, it was actually JD about the bathing suits.
You're out.
That reminded me of my favorite comic book magazine ever that is sadly no longer with us, Amazing Heroes from the 80s, early 90s. And they started the tradition of doing a annual swimsuit edition where they would have artists from all over, independents, all the best Marvel and DC artists, and they would draw pinups of characters in swimsuits, and they would do this every single year. They must have did it for at least a good 5-6 straight years.
They use them for memes now, because I remember like it's easy to of course you've seen like cheesecake pinups of literally every female character in comic books, but they were like, they made an effort to also feature the male characters.
Yep.
So you've got like Cyclops and a Speedo kind of stuff. But the one that I think is the most popular, at least memed, is Wolverine with his claws eating a sausage, like at a barbecue, and he's like shirtless with cutoffs. And it's awesome. Just look it up. It's freaking hilarious. It's like a painted style almost.
I mean, he probably would do that, right? Like if he was just in his life in between the panels.
It's so wildly suggestive too, just like on his claws eating like a giant sausage.
Oh, I didn't get that part.
Yeah. Oh, Brian, you're so pure.
Oh, goodness.
They knew the X-Men were thirsty before Hickman.
Yeah, they were all thruples before Hickman.
Goodness,
nobody talked about it.
Let's move on to Empire number 3. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. Carlos does say that was a Grant Morrison thing. He made them a couple.
That's a total Grant Morrison thing, for sure. Yeah.
There we go. Empire number 3 by Al Ewing and Dan Slott with art by Valerio Schiti. The tag team action comes home. What?
Oh, my.
Talk about thirsty. Thruples, the tag team action. Wakanda is the battleground as the Avengers and the FF unite to prevent a vibranium-powered threat to all life as we know it. A long-lost Avenger returns to active duty, but will that be enough to turn the tide? And in space, interstellar intrigue threatens the fragile Kree-Skrull alliance, and the repercussions may just doom planet Earth.
Oh, shit.
Oh, no!
I have a question.
Yeah.
The mantis that birthed Koi.
I call him Koi.
With Swordsman. Is that the same mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy that ticked and stuff?
Well,
or is it a different mantis?
That is the movie version of this mantis.
No. The comic book version. The Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning version of her being psychic and stuff. Not that. Okay.
Same one.
All right. Because this one doesn't read anything like that one. Like that one was more of like this one reads a lot older, a lot maternal, and I feel like that character has just been like de-aged and aged a couple times, just off panel.
And I think that's what's happened, because this one definitely does read like the classic Mantis from the 70s, who would have this more maternal, aged feel to her, and that's exactly how she read to me. I knew that they had kind of like reintroduced her in the comics. I didn't really know what had been done with her, but I knew they reintroduced the character.
Yeah.
But this read like that Mantis coming back.
I never read those old school Avengers, which I know that this is just an event steeped in old school Avengers. So I had no relation to this character. I just knew her as like the quirky psychic, a part of Guardians of the Galaxy in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I only know her from the movie, to be honest.
Well, then don't get me wrong. She's not the deepest of characters, but she's not what the movies, and it doesn't sound like what her reboot really portrayed her. She was a lot more of a much more, spiritually inclined, but definitely no joke, would not suffer any fools. Held her own as a member of the Avengers. For actually, to be honest, as big as her legend is, it really wasn't that long that she was in the team. But she more thought. This is more aligned with how she was depicted. A more thoughtful.
Cool. I liked it. I just wasn't sure, because I did think for a couple minutes, and I'm sorry for sidetracking how we actually thought about the book, but I did think for a couple minutes, is this the same Mantis or just the same name of a different character? Because that does happen in comics all the time.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe it was a different character, but I guess not. Yeah. Cool.
What did you guys think of this issue?
I thought it was fun.
It felt a little like it plateaued a little bit for me in this issue. It felt like an in-between issue. Not too much happens. There's a reveal at the end that meant nothing to me.
Well, she's the... Oh, yeah, that thing. That reveal.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. I had forgotten that Teddy was the son of the Emperor's Call. I had no idea that his grandmother was not good. But, I thought that was an interesting turn. I think the dynamics of the Kotati instigator being led by his father, and his hero mother is going to try to save him, and Teddy, the hero, with the villainous grandmother, that could lead to some interesting parallels and storytelling,
So you remember, what was it, a week ago or 2 weeks ago, where it was like, we don't want to spoil the Hulkling thing? Mm-hmm. It was revealed in that issue that this accuser later, or pursuer, was not on the level and pretty shit.
Right.
Yeah, right. I remember. Yeah.
She set up a whole thing to kind of separate. She set up like a whole sting to separate Teddy from Wiccan. I forget his name.
Yeah, Wiccan.
Yeah, Wiccan. Yeah. I don't remember his real name.
I mean, his real name.
Yeah. Yeah, Wiccan.
With and then it's revealed that she did it all because she wants to discredit and dismantle the king and blood. But this is where we find out that she's actually a Skrull, which we didn't know that at all.
Interesting.
Right.
It's cool. I mean, they've all been sketchy, just like how in the very first issue of all this, or the Avengers issue, the pre-issue that wasn't the first issue, everyone is so specific and really kind of sketchy because they're all so wonderful. It's just like, well, yeah, shit, they're not good. Okay. It's super on the nose. And it's like, okay, it's fine. What's next?
It's nice that it's coming out once a week, I think it really keeps you going, which won't matter in trades at all. But right now, is cool.
Yeah, this is a pretty good way to do a mid-sized level event.
Yeah.
Just pump them all out and then it's over.
Yeah.
I wonder how this would be interesting to know in hindsight how COVID affected this one, because it was supposed to be a lot bigger. It was supposed to not be weekly. It was supposed to have more tie-ins, and then it was just all kind of like they caught up but then truncated it. So I wonder how much fatigue we'd have by now if this was actually on a normal schedule. Because you're right.
Great.
It's fun, but this doesn't feel like enough of a meal to be monthly, because the same thing keeps kind of happening. Yeah,
that's what I mean. Like even in this issue, it's mostly chit chat.
Yeah.
It's interesting chit chat. I don't want to poo-poo chits and chats, but it's not like there was a lot going on in the issue.
Oh, can I share an interesting tidbit about how Wakanda kind of? Oh, sorry, 1 for and 1 against.
Tiebreaker.
Interesting sort of parallels in the real world with Wakanda. You know, where they get their source of power is this millions of years ago vibranium meteor, and they built there, and that factors into this story. But Egypt also had a similar thing. I was reading up on it a little bit last night to clarify my memory, and it wasn't quite as society changing, maybe, but they had access to iron before we were able to smelt iron from meteorites, and they called iron the space rock or something like that. And so they had like iron beads and whatever were highly associated with their royalty. And I have heard elsewhere that they were able to do sort of more practical things with it, but I wasn't able to verify that last night. But I think it's an interesting and cool parallel. I don't think Stan Lee maybe knew about that, but
no,
yeah.
I do like the reveal that plant-based, the most nutrient-rich anything or soil in the entire world is Wakanda, which I think is really cool.
That was
so I really, really like that.
Mm-hmm. That was smart. I think the reason why this feels like a meanwhile episode book, which is what it does feel like, is because even though it's not as many tie-ins as they were planning, there are still other tie-ins that you are reading. So they've got to patch that together. So it's almost like, each tie-in has a week where you can be the big one, and the other ones will kind of we'll just tell a story. And it's like, but this week the Fantastic Four one that'll be the big action piece, and then next week, and then it'll roll around to when it rolls around back to the main issue.
Yeah, you're totally right. Like this, so I did some Thunder Rounds earlier this week on 2 of the Empire tie-ins. One of them was perfect because it was just a normal issue of the book that had like a little bit to do with, you almost didn't need to know. And the other one was so inconsequential and stupid. Like we're talking 2 characters happen to be in the same place at the same time and something happens. What do we do? Like it was really terrible. And that whole thing of like how you do a tie-in well and how you do it awfully, like it really does like strain the impact of these events.
But I mean, that being said, I'm still enjoying the crossover.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What's up next? I'll tell you in a second. Oh, all right. It's Wonder Woman number 759, written by Mariko Tamaki with art by Mikhail Janin. It's a brand new day for Wonder Woman as Diana starts to pick up the pieces of her life following the battle with the 4 Horsemen and her run-in with the Phantom Stranger. Man's world has become more complicated to navigate than ever before. It seems everyone has a take on who Wonder Woman should be. Some who look on her heroics with admiration, and some who lie in wait to seek revenge. A familial threat is watching a familiar, not familial. Familiar threat is watching Diana's every move, and now is the perfect time to strike. This is the first Wonder Woman issue that I have enjoyed since Brian Azzarello's run. Every time a new creative team comes on, I'm always like, all right, here we go. I'm going to be a Wonder Woman fan. Take me with you. Let's go. And I get about an issue or 2 into it, and I go, nope, still don't care. Even Greg Rucka, still don't care. So, yeah, I think this is the first one that I've actually enjoyed. Noel, what were you going to say?
This is Wonder Woman number 1. This is the first issue. Don't worry about the number. Just jump in. If you've ever cared at all, this is a great first issue. It's awesome. Just awesome.
Yeah.
It is, but for a minute there, I wasn't sure if this was Wonder Woman or we were reading the many adventures of Donna Troy, because he does draw a very youthful looking Wonder Woman. But that being said, I enjoy the issue. I think primarily because of the art. I thought the art is spectacular. I think it is beautiful. I think it is the first time probably since because Cliff Chang drew the Brian Azzarello run, and that was good art. But Cliff has a very distinct style, and this is the first. I think this is the first time that I felt like Wonder Woman was given a style that matches the style of the comic books that are popular today.
What's with the face?
Yeah, I'm looking at Christopher's.
Oh, what? Oh, I thought you were complaining about
garbage.
Yeah, I thought you
were complaining about Cliff Chang because Cliff Chang does have a very eccentric, unique style.
I love Cliff Chang. Give me Cliff Chang all day, baby.
No, I'm not knocking it, but I think he does have a singular style. You know, so either you like him or you don't. Whereas
I'm sorry, I tuned out because Christopher St. Saucy said something bad.
well, then see. All right.
That's my fault.
All right.
Context, explain.
JD, after class, me and you are gonna have a podcasting class. So anyway, I just think that I enjoyed the artwork. The storytelling was simple enough that it gave you enough background of what happened before that you could be invested in what is happening now without getting lost in the details. You could definitely get lost. You could get lost in the weeds between the whole her and Maxwell Lord things, but they don't. They'll probably fill in some more of the gaps as it goes along because maybe you've heard the name and Max Lord, or maybe you didn't hear of him since the Justice League and he was a good guy, or maybe you heard of him since then he was a bad guy. You don't know where he is. So, that scene right there. I mean, that is perfect. You've never seen Wonder Woman depicted so graphically with her powers being displayed without it being like, some overpowered stuff. No, she is just all that. And I mean, look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that. It's beautiful.
That scene.
More than that, too, the very beginning of that scene, it's a small panel where she decides to go chase the car. It's in the background. She's removing her heels.
Yes, I saw that. Yes.
It's so wonderfully done. It's really cool. Like she is the essence of practicality and action, and it's just awesome.
Yeah. Like it's little Tarantino shot there for you.
Yeah.
There's something like anecdotally something I thought was really interesting about this, and they're not connected, but they are. So I just recently listened to Greg Rucka's recent Word Balloon. And they talked about, he talked about what he perceives as a problem that DC has right now, just like a really weird gratification or darkening of a lot of the characters and a lot of the plots of the characters because they're like, they're hope and legacy based. So he talked about how he's still incredibly sour about being removed, straight up fired from the Wonder Woman book post Infinite Crisis.
Yep.
Because he made that choice for Wonder Woman to kill Max Lord as a turning point and a giant problem, not the start of a new status quo where we start to accept and rationalize murder.
I'll tell you,
I love that they're introduced. So what I like, and I looked at some of the solicits going forward. It seems as though they're introducing Max Lord not as a baddie, but an ongoing part of this book, a sense of reform that she is going to have to continue to deal with, which I like after listening to that interview and then reading this book, I was just like, oh, that's something that no one's doing. And it just seems so great. And the fact that it's Mariko Tamaki is just awesome.
With regard to Wonder Woman breaking his neck, I thought that was part of the lead up to Infinite Crisis,
yeah.
So like all of these characters were making these reprehensible decisions, and that is what actually instigates the beginning of the Infinite Crisis with the, the Silver Age characters coming back and being like, we sacrificed ourselves for this shit.
Yeah.
And
they did deal with that. Like, there were ramifications for a while of it being like, was that the right call, Diana? You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but it didn't like it wasn't the other side of that conversation was one that he didn't get to explore, and he's still sour about it because it was wildly popular. And now, less than 20 years later, it's literally Superman ripping necks off, and it's a part of the. Well, I mean, he just like he broke Zod's neck. Just in general, like it's the rationalization of extreme violence, no matter how altruistic the character is. And I would really love for this to be almost like a shadow response to that, or another way by a hopeful writer, because that's what the character is supposed to be.
I definitely did wonder, like, oh, is this?
Did you wonder?
I wondered it, woman. I have wondered if they were like, oh, this is how she's not Superman, right? She's a warrior, because they definitely have leaned into that. You know, like, she's not Superman because she comes from this warrior, you know, race. But also, segue into, in case you guys didn't know, she can talk to animals. Were you guys aware of that?
I forgot that.
Yeah, that is one, or maybe just everyone, including animals. I'm not sure exactly what the definitions of that power are, but that's you know, for them to bring that in this, with also have the Maxwell Lord stuff, it's a very pure, wholesome thing to do, you know?
Well,
I like this, yeah.
Oh, this is great. But talking about violence, she crashes through a window, smash, lands in a group of people with a shield and a sword, and then continues to slice at people with her sword.
That's true.
Which, isn't that just murder too?
Well, she's very good with the sword. I'm sure it's fine.
There's a narrative difference between fighting a horde, defending yourself, versus having a person tied up and snapping their neck. Having a person incapacitated and snapping their neck.
That's Ted Cord, who is...
No, I know, and I'm talking about the difference...
Able to take people's brains and make them...
And was doing that to Superman at the time.
The only way to stop him... Did I say Ted Cord?
You did. Max Lord. But,
What's his name?
Max Lord.
Max Lord, sorry. Maxwell Lord. That was the only way to stop him from having Superman murder everybody, right?
Yeah.
What about knocking him out?
And, like, worming his way into Superman's mind for years, as it turned out.
Yeah.
And knock him out, though?
Kabong him.
No.
Either way. No matter
on, it would be fine. Yeah.
Obviously, the writer that did it had a specific context for it. It made sense in the moment, and it was arguable, but it turned into a turning point for a lot of other weird shit to go darker in the DC universe, despite a lot of other people's like pushing. I feel like this is a spiritual response to that from a very hopeful and empathetic writer. If you've ever read Lauren D. Keeps Breaking Up With Me, and the other thing I read of hers, Harley Quinn, Breaking Glass. Like, she's a very empathetic writer, and I love the fact that she's like tuning in on it for Wonder Woman.
Yeah, as soon as I saw her name was attached to this, I went, "Oh, I'm gonna check this out."
I mean, that's the quality that you need in Wonder Woman. At all. Oh, also, her costume is great. I like this new costume. I'm glad that the bracers aren't gold like they are on the cover, but it looks cool. I like what they've done with the boots. You know, Wonder Woman's costume has a lot going on, and this streamlines it just a little bit. But I always love when they do the Greek warrior skirt with her. I think that's like the best. That's the best like bottom half of her costume for me.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of like the flag. I always really liked the warrior skirt. Yeah.
And in defense of your read, JD, about the scene where she is swiping at the guys, if you really pay attention to the choreography of that, don't get me wrong, she probably shouldn't be there with the sword out in her hand. But who knows? The writer may have said, I want a sword in her hand. She's ready for everything that may happen. She doesn't know what she's jumping into. But if you really look at the choreography of that scene, she actually is kicking and hitting these guys, sometimes with the hilt of the sword, so much so that when Max Lord does come in, the guys are still there. They're still standing.
That's true. Nobody's on the ground.
Right.
Yeah, so, they're sorry, go ahead.
So it's not like she's swiping at them and stabbing them and killing them. She's fighting them. And then Max Lord actually makes them stop with, whatever he does. It makes them double over.
Yeah. I presume he's controlling them in general.
Yeah, their eyes are glowy.
Yeah.
You know what that means.
That means they're possessed?
Yeah. In this case, yes.
So in that defense, she's still upholding her values in that scene. That's all.
This was a great book.
Yeah. No, yeah. All of this nitpicking aside, this was awesome. I really am excited to be reading Wonder Woman. So finally.
I think I mentioned in the chat too. I think this is one of my favorite things this week. Yeah. This was wonderful.
What's up next? It is
X Factor.
Another one of my favorite things from this week. X Factor #1 from Leah Thompson and David Baldian. Mutants have conquered death. By the grace of the Five, the resurrection protocols can bring back any fallen mutant, but such a huge enterprise isn't without its problems and complications. When a mutant dies, X Factor is there to investigate how and why to keep the rules of reincarnation. This was fun. I had no interest in another X book. I had my fill of new X-Men titles. But that being said, I really enjoyed this. I think the characterization had a lot to do with it. The fact that basically they are a murder investigation team, like a murder mystery team, speaks to me a little bit. I think that's kind of cool. I like reading murder mystery stories, but it's really the way the characters are written here. When Dakin was introduced, the son of Wolverine, I just thought he was such an edgelord, D-bag kind of character, and I had no interest in him. And what he has evolved into here, I find him charming and kind of fun to watch. And I don't know much about iBoy, but he disturbs me. So that I liked his intro where he was gluing googly eyes onto his shoes. So yeah, I think this was a really fun first issue. What did you think, Len?
Oh, I thought we were going to go to Brian.
For some reason I was expecting, but I'll go next.
I want to hear what Brian thought of the book.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, he didn't read it. He didn't read it.
Len, after this, we're gonna have a.
Oh no, I did read it. No, I read it. No, okay. I'll go. Yes, it's a fun book. It's a fun little mystery book. They got they're kind of like the murder. What's it called? The Mystery Machine. They're like the Mystery Machine bunch. Like they even have their own Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. The Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
They do have their own Scooby-Doo.
They got their own Scooby-Doo, right? So, it was fun. Again, and this is a very nitpicky thing. I just hate the lettering. I just do not like the lettering on these X-Men books. And for whatever reason, it takes me out. And I know they purposefully keep the lettering the same on all of the X-Men books, so that kind of like pieces them all together.
It is an ultimate universe kind of lettering. It's all like lowercase kind of lowercase italics. Yeah.
And I don't think that lettering matched the vibe of the book, and I think that's why it takes me out of it. But overall, this was fun. These were characters, to be honest, I know very little about most of them, and the ones that I know the most about, I go back to the 80s and 90s, so who knows who they are now. Like, it was nice to see that North Star is still a douche. So I mean, that was cool. All right, I got that one. Yay! And his sister is still, very like mysterious. So much so that they don't even show her face in the book. So I like, all right, cool. All right, that's dope. Their hair is black now, but okay, whatever. I guess their hair was always black. It just had white highlights when I remember Brian doing it. But it was fun. It was a fun little book. It was a little long for me. It was almost like, they could have excised like about 10 pages out of this, I thought. But for it to be the intro of them into this world, and if this is going to be a team that goes off and, fights mysteries, then I'm with it. They did something with Polaris. I didn't care about Polaris, but he finally did something with her. And she's the Fred of the bunch. So I'm with it. It was cool. It was fun. It was dumb, silly fun.
Polaris. I don't know much about Polaris either. And it looks like Leah Thompson. Yeah, Leah Thompson is ready to do some work on her and maybe do some exploring about her character, because she even said she's having a conversation with her father Magneto, and he doesn't understand why she doesn't want to be the leader of this team. And she goes, "Father, if you had to describe my personality, what would you say?" And so Magneto just kind of glosses over. So I like that. And he's like, "Yeah, I don't really know how to answer that question either. So I have to figure that out." And I like that we're going to be exploring that character and maybe sort of defining her for moving forward. Also, talking about the Thirsty X-Men.
The Boneyard?
Yeah, they're calling it the Boneyard, their new building.
They are. They're all sassy and sexy. It's all about flirting and pushing and prodding and you know what? It's almost all of these characters have that tactic of making tactically making you uncomfortable with with sexuality or sexual situations, which gets them what they want, which is really cool. The best scene of that is Talkin flirting with that hotel manager, and it's hilarious and it's great. I liked this because it was really fun and breezy, but it also reminded me of they brought back the X Factor investigations aspect of it all. I had wondered when I saw that this book was being announced, I had wondered what they were going to do, because the whole idea of that was a noir, that was a private investigators that were also mutants that handled mutant cases. But now you've got this situation where they're all,
the Peter David, the Madrox stuff.
Yeah,
you're talking about.
Yeah. Now you've got the situation where they're all living on an island that's tropical and are, essentially gods among men. So it was very weird where they would fit that in. But then the idea of resurrection is so complex and complicated that they need to identify bodies and confirm deaths and having cases based off of the whereabouts of missing persons. I just thought it was a really, really cool idea of being able to slot that tone into this new status quo of we all own an island.
Yeah, and as much as this is all like Shangri-La here on Krakoa and everything like that, there has to be an order besides the quiet council. There has to be some type of form of structure so that things can run properly. Otherwise, it's just going to be mutants amok on here. And I also appreciated that was coming from other voices on the island as opposed to the X-Men, being the leaders of saying that. This was these people who were charged with the resurrections. They're all, at least from what I can tell, youthful looking, and they all are like, hey, we want to do this. We're not slacking at this, but we got things. It's got to be done in an orderly fashion. Otherwise, it's just going to be chaos. And we're trying to stop the chaos right now. I like that. I like that part of the story. It was good.
I did. I do miss Madrox a little. I love that run. The X Factor investigations, and I was like, wait, there's an X Factor and no Madrox? What's this? But that being said, conversely, I was very happy that David got. I forget his superhero name. But that he got his powers back. He's a very minor X-Men character.
Prodigy,
yeah. I always liked him in, I forget even the book that he was in. Generation X, maybe?
Young Avengers. He was in Young Avengers for like he's a current cast member in Young Avengers.
Oh, really? But like so before he lost his powers in House of M, and he was part of a book at that time, and he was one of the ones that I was like the most upset about with House of M, and so yes.
What is his power?
He has. So it was interesting too because he kept some of it. He had the ability to absorb people's like expertise.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and then he lost his powers. He was still an expert in like a ton of stuff because he had done that. So he wasn't like out of the game completely. Yeah. But I was like, oh, sweet, he's got his powers back. I always like it when people get their powers back because I have powers. So
he was really excited whenever people get their groove back.
Yeah, Stella or anyone doesn't matter. Oh, and you guys want to see something? Oh, you remember the thing that Lorna like sits down in at the end?
What is that?
Check this out.
Okay.
All right, not right now because I'm not on screen, but soon.
I'm waiting.
Yeah, it's bismuth, right? This is this is the molecular form of bismuth that, as I understand it, it's liquid and they freeze it. They turn it into a solid very quickly, and that causes it to like jump into its molecular form on a macroscopic scale so that we can see it, in our world. And that is what it reminded me of anyway. Are you guys getting a good look at that?
That's cool.
It doesn't look particularly comfortable.
That's what I was thinking. She's got like a dish part of it. I was like, I don't know that I would want to lay down on this. It kind of looks like a sci-fi pyramid of ancient times kind of thing, very jagged. But hey, whatever's necessary for her aesthetics.
She manipulates ore and metal. She made it as smooth and comfy as she needs to. If it like, heck, we don't even know. She could have it be like half liquid, half hard, and just like a waterbed at all times.
That's an excellent point. No,
like that stuff you get at that toy store from. What do you
squeeze it and it becomes hard? What's that?
That's the bismuth I know. That's can you see her?
Yeah, Steven Universe.
Yeah, from Steven Universe. That's the bismuth I know. That's my bismuth.
I can see her symbol is like the bismuth that I know. Like
I need you guys to mind your own business about this.
Business.
Hey, did anyone else read Pulp besides me and Noel?
I read Pulp.
I did not.
Oh, right. Cool. All right. So here we go. Pulp by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. My absolute favorite book of the week. Matt Winters, a pulp writer in 1930s New York, finds himself drawn into a story not unlike the tales he churns out at 5 cents a word. Tales of a Wild West outlaw dispensing justice with a 6-gun. But will Max be able to do the same when pursued by bank robbers, Nazi spies, and enemies from his past? I don't know. Maybe. This was great. So this is a OGN from Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, the people who bring you Criminal and Sleeper and The Fade Out and Fatale and all those other wonderful books. I wasn't sure if this was going to be because what they've been doing is issues of Criminal will come out and then they will release a hardcover of that story and will fool me, the retailer, into thinking it's a brand new story. And then I realized, these are just a reprint. This is a collection of a Criminal storyline. But this is actually an OGN. And I was interested in reading it, but Noel's the really one who just kept.
Oh, yeah. Guys, you don't understand. All week long, I've been like, hey, it's no longer than Cybernetic Summer. Hey, like it's really, really good. And I really think that this person would like it. Oh, I'd love Len to hear Len's thoughts. Like all week long, I've been breaking these fools down, trying to get them to read this because this was, bar none, the best thing I read this week.
So good.
Across the board.
Tell us why.
Tell us why. First of all, the plot was fantastic. The idea of, in the 1930s, somebody writing pulp fiction, Western tales, actually lived them, and he's fictionalizing them now because it's only 50 years. He had the displeasure of surviving.
Yeah.
So he's making money by fictionalizing his past, and because he's doing that, he's easily traceable by some others from his past, and it unwinds into this in order to not die penniless and take care of his loved ones, maybe pulling off a heist as a 70-something-year-old with a bad ticker in 1930s. But then I thought that was going to be the story.
Yeah.
But then it escalates into involving pre-World War II efforts in America. And I'm like, holy shit, this is spectacular. This was the coolest thing I've read. And the way that, like, if you know, I didn't want to necessarily spoil it, but yeah, it deals with Nazis.
It's edited.
It didn't. If you like Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips' work, nothing seems inherently special about this, because they're a team that is so consistent with their effort, that's like their excellent effort, that it's almost very easy to just kind of, oh yeah, it's another criminal book, that's fine.
Oh, it's another amazing comic by the same guys.
I mean, you know what? When you constantly have the same amazing meal, you start to forget how amazing the meal is. Actually, that happened with Brubaker's Captain America run. After a while, people just stopped talking about it, but it's like, it's still really fucking great, guys. Yep. This was easy to overlook, but it was easily the best thing I read this week because it was just so effective and so tight.
I squeezed this in at 2 a.m. this morning. It was time for bed, but I was like, you know what? I'm not really that tired, and Noel just won't shut the more about this book. Let me give it a shot. It looks pretty thin. And oh man, I stayed up until it was done, and it was awesome. And then I went to bed, and I woke up Sushan a little bit, and I was like, look at this. This is so cool. This is so good. And yeah, what you were saying, Noel, earlier about, I felt like it just kept escalating. Yeah, like I would think, okay, here's the story. This is cool. Oh no, this is the story. Oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm,
yeah. It was like the end of the Lord of the Rings, right? There was like 9 endings.
yeah.
But this kept elevating. I highly recommend. This is definitely my favorite thing of the week. Who else read this? Who said that? Was that Noel or Len or Brian?
It was me. It's me. And as much as the story keeps escalating, what I like is that his characterization doesn't change. He is still a 70-year-old man with a bad heart, right? Who is moved by the situations that he is in, plus by the lessons that he has learned from his past to make the moves that he does. And I don't want to give it away, this story, because this is a story that you're right. People should read. You should bring it. You should take it home, read it, set it down for a day or so, go back and read it again, because you will capture so many more things in this book. The realness of his characterization. You will see the BS of the Old West that has been told in the pulp stories and in Hollywood of that day, because the book starts off in 1939. You will I think that it is so smart to have this 70-year-old dude, having lived the Old West. When you look at on like movies and read books, and they say, this happened in 1885, 1890, you don't realize how close that is to the 20th century, right? Yeah. I mean, so if you were in your 10s and 20s in the 1990, you are still very much a viable adult in the 30s and the 40s, so to take that walk through time with this character is just like so smart. And two other things I will leave you with. One, this is the best issue of Sin City that never happened. That's what this character is. This is for all the mocking that Frank or bastardization that Frank Miller and some other artists have done of pulp detective novels in their comics. This is 21st century pulp comics, film noir done perfectly. That's what Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips have done with almost all of their work. But in this one, this is just because it is just this moment in time and this one little story. It is perfect. It is spot on. And you know a book is great. When I was reading this, I was like, all right, this is another book I wish I read digitally. You know what? It's so long. I'm only going to read 30 pages. That'll give me enough to be able to promote it. And then I can say, like, yeah, I read it. I loved it. I can't wait to read it.
Did you read, Len?
I stuck with this book all the way to the end. And I'm so happy I did, because you know a book is spot on when the best part of the book that you've been enjoying all night is the last page. The last page is so perfect in line with what has happened before. I was like, oh my God, this was beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Noel, for making us read this book.
Jamming this down our throats.
Thank you. Yeah. What is it? The last line. It's not even a spoiler. Anyway, that's how it happened.
Yeah.
This book is magic.
Quick side note, I have a customer who comes in, Larry is his name, and he is a 72-year-old gentleman. He just celebrated his 72nd birthday. And he said something to me that is almost line for line what is written here about being in your 70s. And I'm just going to read it real quick. That was one of the problems with getting older. You hit an age where everyone either ignores you or treats you like some hassle they're being forced to deal with. But inside, you still feel like the same person you were 30 or 40 years ago. You don't think of yourself as the man you see in the mirror. At least I didn't. And that is a conversation that Larry and I had 2 weeks ago, where he was talking about, he's turning 72. It was his birthday. He was going to go get some cookies specifically for his birthday. And I said, man, how's that feel? And he said that exact thing about, like, it's a lot different than I thought it was going to be being this old.
I've heard that my one of my grandmothers has said that, and I've heard it around, like on the show Modern Family. I think they said that at one time. Like, most of the time you don't think of yourself as being old. You think of yourself as being in your 30s. You're that person.
I am definitely still in my 20s.
Your body. What's that?
I said I am definitely still in my 20s for being 22.
Yeah, adulthood is the great lie. Like, there's no you get experience points, but you don't have, like, there's no, like, specific stepped metamorphoses to get to the next part. Like, I didn't know I was an adult until it was blatantly obvious for like 5 or 6 years. Like, oh shit, I do all the adult things. I'm an adult now?
Yeah.
And then, like, same thing with 35. Like, oh shit, I used to think I was old. Like, my age was the old person, and I don't feel old. Like, it's just it's always like an afterthought of, like, oh, I'm not different. You guys are.
I remember this show that lasted like half a season. Jennifer Grey said she was in it as herself. It was
a sitcom.
It was in like the late 90s that it was.
It was a sitcom. It was like a self-aware sitcom. Yeah. I remember that.
And it was good. I liked it. And one of the lines that she was like, whatever age she was like, now that I'm 39, I think back on how I was when I was like 37, and I'm like, what was I doing? What was I thinking? And then she's like, that seems to happen like every 2 years or so. And he's like, is that how it's going to be when I'm 82? You're like, what a moron I was when I was 80. Like, and that has always stuck with me.
Funny.
Yeah.
Was this original nose Jennifer Grey or new nose Jennifer Grey?
New. It was the late 90s. She was playing herself as Jennifer Grey, who it was set in Hollywood, and she was like the
struggling artist or struggling actor.
The joke that she was unrecognizable for the most part.
Right.
That's like the main joke. Yeah.
I think one of the writers from Seinfeld was the main character, I believe. I think, yeah. JD, do you know how Batman has had a series of Robins over his career?
Yeah.
Is there anything that's not like that at all that would let people donate money to this show?
Oh, that was by far your best. That was
Thank you.
wonderful. Yeah, if you guys actually, you know what? Yeah,
You can only do that once. You can only ring that bell once.
Oh, I know.
So, yeah, that was good.
If anyone wants to help the show out, you can go to by not asking non sequitur questions. You can go to patreon.com/JohnnyDestructo, and you can donate just like Kevin Brown did yesterday. Thank you, Kevin Brown, for donating. Adam Aiello. He also donated monthly. Thank you so much. And Alabama Whirly, thank you so much for donating. If anyone else would like to follow suit, go to patreon.com/JohnnyDestructo and help us out. You can also just share, like, rate, whatever, all the social media stuff. Just get on it.
Like and subscribe.
That stuff. Let's do Melly G says smooth.
Oh, thank you, Melly G.
Which I almost read as smooth brain.
Smooth brain.
Isn't that a phrase of like when you're talking about people are like, oh, those smooth brains.
Like no wrinkles.
No memories. Yeah, just no memories or wrinkles at all. Just smooth brain.
DL Pope says, lol.
Thank you.
Yeah. We always appreciate a good lol. I got rid of it. Let's talk about some gutter. Why don't you intro this portion of the show?
Well, this portion of the show is where we get into a little bit of gutter talk, talking about the bits and ends of the comic book and pop culture scene. And if you don't know where the word comes from, it comes from two places. One, it was another show that we used to do called Gutter Talk, and we kind of sandwiched them all together. And two, the gutters are the white spaces that you find on the comic book page. Those are called the gutters. So we are talking all in around the comic book page, and we're starting with an email that we got from Christopher St. Saucy. Good night.
Yeah.
He has a question for you guys. What 3 unconnected movies would you put in a movie night? Usually on Saturday nights, I watch movies all night to maintain my sleep schedule. The week before last, it was a little movie marathon of Parent Trap, Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen, and Freaky Friday, and Herbie Fully Loaded.
So what's her face?
Assuming the Parent Trap was the Lindsay Lohan one, which
they're all Lindsay Lohan movies, the Herbie one too,
yeah.
And yeah, those movies are connected. But last week I watched Flight Plan, Red Eye, and some of Air Force One. The sound quality on Netflix was really bad, so I didn't quite finish it. Can you think of 3 movies with no or minimal connections that you would put in a movie night? And then I'll go to the next question.
I caveat or wondering or caveat, like a movie night to be enjoyed or something to restfully kind of background noise, because that's what he just described. So is this stuff that I want to fall asleep to that I'm comfortable with, or is this like schedule a marathon?
I don't know.
Because those are 2 totally different things.
I will say to enjoy. Like, okay, he puts it on to fall asleep to keep his sleep schedule. But Christopher St. Saucy good night. He's a special guy. So if I'm going to plan a movie marathon, it's not to sleep. It's to enjoy. So what 3 movies would you put together to enjoy? Just as the way you're enjoying are the person who has come onto the show, and that's that guy right there.
Brandon. Hi, everyone. Can you guys hear me? It all works?
Yeah. Hey, Brandon.
Hey, Brandon. We'll let you start, Brandon. So what 3 movies?
No, because okay.
We all just heard the question. I
missed the question.
Yeah.
That's why I'm about to repeat it. What 3 movies?
Ryan.
What 3 movies with no or minimal connections would you put together in a movie night?
About Time, The Dark Knight.
Oh.
And I can't think of a third one. I don't know.
The musical.
No, but those are all real. Hamilton. We'll say Hamilton.
There you go.
All right. Is there any type of loose connection, or are you just naming 3 movies?
What kind of my 3 like favorite kind of things? There's a loose connection in that there's always like a romance element in them, sort of. But The Dark Knight, it's very loose, obviously.
It is. Wait, is that About Time the Justin Timberlake one, or there's another movie?
No.
Time, right?
That's In Time.
In Time, that's right.
About Time is it's a British movie with Rachel McAdams and Hux from Star Wars. Whose name I forget.
Domhnall Gleeson, I believe.
Yeah.
That's a good movie. I just saw that recently.
Very good movie. Everyone should watch it.
Yeah. Those are good picks. I would enjoy that evening of filmed entertainment.
I wouldn't.
He would make it his business.
Only reason I wouldn't is because I would not like Dark Knight would have to be the last movie because I would fall asleep on Dark Knight.
Wait, Dark Knight, not Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, Dark Knight. I would fall asleep on Dark Knight.
What
after he captures the Joker, I don't need any more of the movie.
Okay.
It's good, but I don't need any more of it. I would fall asleep, and I would be fighting to make it to him capturing the Joker.
Well, especially after like 4 hours of Hamilton. Which
Hamilton, I've watched it 5 times now, guys. It's great.
Oh, see, I find the first half. After the first half, I'm like, I'm good.
Really? Because I think the exact opposite. I was like, the first half, I was like, oh, this is really good, but I don't know why everybody is talking about it as much as they are. And then, I mean, there were elements of it that were awesome in the first act. But then the second act, I was like, whoa, here we go. This is yeah, I really liked it. Yeah.
Dark Knight?
Jefferson.
No, Hamilton.
Yeah.
Dark Knight?
God damn it.
No, I think I have. I love that I just come back differently though. That's my favorite part. Yeah. I have 3 that I would pick that are not related. The Little Shop of Horrors film, the Rick Moranis musical.
Oh, yeah.
The original RoboCop.
Whoa.
And
that's a total shift.
And George Romero's Dawn of the Dead.
Holy
jeez! Whoa, Jesus Christ!
Are we friends?
Because they are all wonderful, effective, and incredibly intelligent satires. All of them. Like they are almost parodies. How spectacular! They're such good satires that people don't know that they're satires for the most part, unless you like know film. Like that. Most of RoboCop is a joke about fascism, but people are just like, shit's blowing up and it's fucking cool. Yeah. Like, I love that stuff. Actually, you could swap RoboCop and Starship Troopers in that lineup. But the idea, like consumerism, environmentalism, and fascism. Excellent satires.
What order are you showing them?
So if it's a marathon, it's going to be Dawn, Robo, and then Little Shop of Horrors, because if I start to fall asleep, I'm going to want to fall asleep to a musical, so I don't have nightmares about people being exploded or eating each other.
Okay. Cool.
Should I say my order?
Sure. Yeah.
Because I just thought of it. So it'll be About Time first, because it's British, and then it'll be Hamilton, because we're leaving England, and then it'll be The Dark Knight, because then that's firmly in America, and there's all the money, and it's all about capitalism.
That's
it's all British actors doing American accents. So yeah,
this is true.
There you go. I'm gonna go next. I would, and mine definitely have a connection. But these are just movies that I think that people don't appreciate anymore, or haven't been appreciated for quite some time. So, in order, it would be The Jerk, Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, and then Roxanne. The great movies of Steve Martin.
Nice.
Cool.
Roxanne's my least favorite in there, but it's still.
Oh,
really
I love Roxanne.
Oh, Roxanne!
Wait, hang on. When you compare them to the other two, it's my least favorite in there. I didn't say it wasn't enjoyable.
Yeah,
That's what it sounded like.
Yeah,
I think the movie's shit. I think it's garbage. I think all he did was like slap feces on microfiche and then project it wide.
I wish you could see my cursor, Noel, because I'm up your nose. I'm up your nose right now.
JD's pretending to take a phone call because he doesn't even want to deal with us. Oh yeah, is it?
So.
He doesn't realize that he can drop himself out and we could still be on the show.
Nope. I want to see it. I want to see every burp and whistle.
So when the first question first was asked, I was like, all right, I got 2. What's the third? And now I have 7 or so. Because one thing I was thinking is like, all right, like comfort movie, like what movie will I always watch if it comes on, right? And The Birdcage is on that list. Yeah, ooh,
I love that movie.
Yeah, and especially knowing the Pierce the Toast line is an ad lib. Ever since I found that out, I'm like, I just enjoy that line so much more, you know. Oh, when he's trying to be like
smear the toast.
Yeah, where he's like, men don't spread, they schmear. And then Nathan Lane is doing this, and he's like, puts it. He's like, toast. And Nathan and Robin Williams like, hey, you pierced the toast. Don't worry about it. He just accidentally broke the toast that he was doing. Anyway, I love that movie. Coming to America is on that list, but I haven't seen it on TV in a long time. So, there's that. But let's see. I was thinking American Beauty. Which is maybe my all-time favorite movie.
Wow.
Yeah, but I haven't seen it in about 20 years. So that's the other, right? Like it enjoyed place, but not for a while.
Flavors change like more rapidly than 20 years. You should revisit that movie.
When it came out, it really spoke to the whole like free yourself from the doctrines of society, right? And sometimes even I'm like, do I want to rewatch something that I loved? Because I love it now, like Fight Club came out around the same time and spoke to a lot of the same feelings. What was the other one? Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah, that's another.
That's the first one I've seen of the ones you guys have mentioned.
Oh, really? Ooh, movies, man. You haven't seen The Birdcage?
No, he wasn't
I've
alive.
Seen Birdcage, I think.
Movies that were made when I wasn't alive.
He was what?
So am I.
Young Frankenstein.
It's not those.
Yeah. Wait. I don't like horror movies, and my dad came home one time Halloween. He's like, "We're gonna watch Young Frankenstein." And I was like, "I don't want to watch Young Frankenstein." No, he's like, "Wait, and just sit down and watch it." And I'm like, "I don't want to." And
he smacked you.
It's not a.
And then what did you say? Just keep doing the voice.
My all-time favorite movies in the history of comedies. It is one of the best.
Oh, quick aside on Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
I was walking home one day with my daughter. She may have been about 4 or 5 years old. And I don't know, for whatever reason, Young Frankenstein was in my head. And I started singing out loud, and I can't remember the words. Like, where fashion fits. And my daughter, without missing a beat, said, "Put on a Ritz."
Oh my God.
I had no idea that she had ever seen the film. She must have watched it with her mom. I was like, "You are my daughter." And then we just walked home singing that for the rest of the day. Like, oh my God, it's still one of my favorite memories.
Cool. All right, on that token, that's on my list then.
I guess mine would be Batman 1989.
Okay.
Dread.
Which one?
The new
Dread,
one,
Dread, not Judge
Dredd,
Dredd. Okay.
And the Iron Giant.
Well, I've never seen that.
Oh, you've never seen the Iron Giant?
It's true.
Oh,
he can't take it. He left the show.
Oh, yes.
He's grabbing the toy. There it is.
There it is. Oh, I've seen it in your store, JD. Definitely.
No, that was the toy. This is the statue.
Oh,
nice.
Oh, Brian, do yourself a favor and watch the Iron
that's
Giant.
what I have recently heard. Like some things about that movie that I almost would rather not have heard before I heard them, but I was like, "Ooh, that's good." And plus, I didn't know Brad Bird did it until recently.
Oh man,
I got to see it in the theater.
Ooh.
Like I just begged my dad to go. Didn't know anything about the movie other than it was a cartoon that weekend, and we all cried.
Oh wow!
It's the best It's the best. One of the best animated movies.
It may be one of the best. If somebody said it's in the top 10 of animated movies of all time, I would not argue. That is how good that movie is.
Yeah.
All right.
Brandon, have you seen the Iron Giant?
Maybe when I was real young, but I don't remember it.
Okay. All right.
So it's a no. Yeah.
Also,
Yeah,
best
pretty
performance
much.
of Vin Diesel's career.
I mean,
you know what?
Have you seen all 9 Fast and Furious?
Yo, Boiler Room was pretty sweet too, but I won't argue.
The pacifier was amazing.
Actually, his best performance is in Saving Private Ryan. To be honest.
I just watched that again. Boy, that movie.
Oh, I forgot he was one of the troops, right? Like one of the main.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
With the little girl.
Mm-hmm.
What's up with Gutter Talk, Len?
Oh, so there's more from Christopher St. Saucy. Good night.
Oh,
He ain't gonna be mad at me for not reading his whole email. So he continues with the second part. Have you ever wait a minute, let me check the rules. Are we cursing again or not?
I don't care.
Okay.
Were we not cursing?
I think I did a couple times. I'm sorry.
Have you ever had to deal with a dick store manager? I went to Target in the wee hours of the morning to wait for them to open so I could buy the Target exclusive G.I. Joes that were scheduled to come out on Saturday, August 1st. There has been some wavering on when it will come out, and they kept changing the date, but early last week, Hasbro, confirmed they would be released in stores on the 1st and online on the 14th, but apparently it wasn't communicated to Target, and the manager wouldn't sell them or even go back to the back of the store to get them. The kid at the service desk confirmed they had them, and he was rather rude about it. Granted, I have been up all night and may have been on edge myself, but still, he was rude and haughty, smug about it. I wasn't the only one there who wanted them, so it's not like I was asking him to take my word for it. Plus, we had the press release tweet from Hasbro. I skipped out on voluntary overtime to make sure I could beat the scalpers/flippers, and now I'm going to have to leave work early on a Friday morning if I can to do it, since it's a day after I work all night. The perils of being a collector, I guess. Any unpleasant store clerk/manager encounters can you recall? And JD, I am watching your unboxing video, and I also had the pokey little puppy, but I also had Hiram's red shirt. Chris St. Saucy, good night.
I don't have anything specifically like that where I'm in like battle with the retailer, because at the end of the day, you just won't win. Like if they're not going to sell you something, they don't have to sell you something. So it's a very weird like fight to be in. Mm-hmm. But I have been in situations where the retailer is just an asshole. Mm-hmm. Like when I engage with somebody, whether I'm trying to buy something from them or they're selling something or whatever, it should never be a closed conversation. It should always be leading. You know, like I have gone into shops and just been like, oh, hey, do you guys have this? No, we sell out of that. Oh, okay. I'm gonna go fuck myself. Thank you. Thank you for like it's very closed and it's very pointed to essentially shame you into bothering asking, and that I don't abide, and I never shop there again. And or I have actually told them that was shitty and then left. Like I've literally told retailers like, you don't have to treat me like a child and or a subclass citizen. I'm literally just asking a question. I'm sorry if it inconvenienced you. So to always vote with your dollar and just don't go to that store again, period. Yeah.
Now, I've been on both sides of that, right? Like I've definitely had retailers treat me, you know, as an ass or whatever. I worked at a movie theater for 14 years. And Like one guy called me a douche for saying he was like, hey, the movie was really loud at this free screening of Iron Man 2. He's like, the movie was really loud. And I'm like, oh, sorry about that, sir. If you come out, we'll always do it. He's like, yeah, it was so loud I couldn't even talk to my wife. And I was like, yeah, well, we really prefer that you don't talk to during the movie. And he's like, for a manager, you're a real douche. And he flipped me off and he left. And one of the other guys was like, that was good volume, man. Good. So, I just bring that up to say that from his side of the story, he's probably like, one time I met this real douche of a manager. And he said, he had this real flippant response to my complaint about the volume. I don't know.
I managed a movie theater just as long as you did.
Yeah.
And for it's hoity. There were some really dumb people though. Like it was weird. Like for some reason, there's something special about the movie theater where people seem to think that it's less of a service and more of like a exalted event where you are to be catered to. Like,
no, it was.
No, we just make sure that the presentation is
right.
Optimal. Other than that, like, this is not your television. We're not going to adjust everything specifically to you. I can give you tickets, or I can help rectify it, but I mean, if you didn't like the movie, you don't get a refund.
Right.
I actually that kind of shit. Yeah.
More than once, but
more than 20 times. Yeah. Yeah.
My mom has said that when she was a kid, they would dress up to go to the movies. Like this was an event.
Night out. Yeah.
But it's funny you should say that about the tickets because it ties into Christopher's question. That one time I had a customer come up and they said, hey, I didn't like the movie. The movie was done. They're like, well, I didn't like the movie. Can I get a refund? And we said, no, we don't do that. He said, but if you don't like the meal at a restaurant, they give you a refund, or they don't make you pay for it. And I said, well, they make the food. We just show you the movie. And I was very polite about it, but pointed it out. And the customer was like, oh, yeah, that's a good point. And he left, So I often find that it's best to approach it, no matter which side you're on, from a standpoint of like, hey, you're just doing your job. You're not in charge of Target's rules. Hey, if there's anything, like, could you help me out with this? But if you can't, I understand. You get a lot more out of people if you don't confront them. If you like kind of, hey, we're all just people trying to get through the world. If you can help me out, that's great. If not, I understand. A lot of times people
I had a similar problem to what Brian's story was. Is I actually had gone to that movie theater. That's how I met Brian, right? Did we meet at your movie theater or at the comic shop?
I assume comic shop, but it's in the murky reaches of time,
And I was there, and I was at an Iron Man 2 screening, and I just really wanted to talk to my wife about spaghetti. I had particularly good spaghetti that day, and I wanted to tell my wife about it. And the movie was so loud.
We couldn't text because they were like, hey, put away your phones, and I was like, all right, Stalin, making me do whatever.
It's funny you point that out because I used to go to this comic book store and like it's like ginger-headed manager there. Every time I would
I was just waiting for it. Oh, I moved in the Hollywood squares.
Oh, I'm one closer to JD. All right.
Wait, there we go. I guess I have two. I had one where I was the customer, and I have one where I was the person in charge. I was going to an old comic shop in Northeast Philadelphia. It was my comic shop, the one that was closest to me. I had to walk to it because I, didn't have a car yet. I wasn't of driving age. I was very young. And it was one of my first experiences in a comic book store that I remember. And I had gone, and I was excited to buy whatever it was. Maybe it was an Image comic. Maybe it was something, whatever the comic book was. The person selling it to me thought I was not spending my money correctly, and I was buying a comic that he didn't like. And so he sort of like scoffed at my choice. And it was then that I decided if I ever have a comic book store, I am not going to be that guy. And he also made fun of, there is a thing I saw recently, a meme where it talks about vocabulary and how I learned a lot of my vocabulary through reading. So I didn't always pronounce things correctly. Like fruition, I always thought was fruition. But anyway, there was a comic book called Parallel Lives. Does anyone remember this?
It sounds familiar.
I had asked for, I saw it behind the counter and I said, oh, what's that book? Parallel Lives. And I'd used the wrong lives, spelled the same way.
Right.
And he was such a dickhead because I said parallel. I assumed maybe it was a Spider-Man villain named Parallel.
I mean, that is a correct way. That is a correct way to pronounce that word.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But he made fun of me for it. So I was like, I'm never going to do that. But as a guy who was running another comic book store, a customer had come in and he was flipping through a comic book very slowly, page by page, almost panel by panel. And I said, all right, he's sitting there, he's reading the book. I'm going to let him have the one. I'm not going to say anything. I'll let him get through that one issue of him slowly sitting there reading it at the shelf. And as soon as he picks up another one, I might say something. So he picks up a second one, and I come over and I go, hey, man, that's just so you know, like, we don't mind you flipping through the books, but you can't really just sit and read them. I mean, it's kind of like stealing, right? And he's like, what do you mean it's stealing? It's not stealing. And I was like, well, I mean, you're enjoying a thing that you're supposed to pay for free, right? And I thought I was having a very, what I thought, reasonable conversation. Like, if you go to a movie, if you don't pay for the movie, you're kind of stealing the movie, right? And he wasn't having it. He was so upset, and he threw the comic book down and he left. He was so angry. So yeah, I've been on both sides of the counter for that sort of thing. I guess I've been the asshole manager, but
no, that situation
I was an asshole manager. And right. I wonder if we went and talked to this Target guy who didn't want Christopher St. Saucy Goodnight to buy his action figures, I'd be just curious to hear what his side of that story would be.
Well, it sounds like his side of the story would be, we were told we can't sell this yet, and I have other things going on, and I can't go and verify. Like, he'd probably have to call his district manager or something to verify that this tweet is correct. And, I mean, he's at work. He's dealing with who knows what he's dealing with. And that is probably what his side of the story is what it sounded like.
Did anybody not give theirs? Who?
Well, I mean, I have like a few. I remember I went to like my first free comic book day, and it was a store that's like near my house. And the guy, like, he wasn't like really rude, but he was just kind of standoffish the whole time. And I was like, this doesn't seem fun. But it was also like one of the first times I'd gone to a comic shop. So I was like, I don't know. I've heard comic store owners aren't that great, honestly. Like, they say that online a lot. So that's kind of what I was like, I don't know. Maybe this guy is just like this. And then I had a friend who lived closer to there, and he doesn't read comics, but he said he went in there once. And the guy was a dick to him too. So I was like, I guess that guy's just a dick. And then I went to a different comic store, and the people there were like, they weren't rude, but they also weren't like engaging or trying to help or anything. And I was like, I guess it's just comic book people. And then I went to Amalgam, and they were really nice. And then I went to JD, and he was really nice. And I was like, oh, there are good people. Those guys were just assholes. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, I've always found that, like, I hear that about comic stores, and I'm like, what is that all about? Like, the comic store has always been a welcoming, cool place for me. And I'm sorry that I think it was a previous generation too. Like,
I don't know.
For that.
There's a prevailing kind of idea of gatekeeping comics on the retailer level that it does still exist.
Yeah.
We're just lucky enough to have in our immediate area a handful of stores that aren't like that. But it's less common than it should be. Even the very popular stores that we hear about, I've been to, like in major metropolitan areas, and man, they don't give a shit if you're there at all.
Yeah.
So
like being on the other end, being on the this side of the ownership, I've still gone to shops in Philly, and nobody, like, the guy was there at the counter, reading his comic book like this.
Yeah.
Didn't look up for once. I was in there for 20 minutes browsing around. There was a cat, and the cat greeted me, so that was cool.
Now I know where you were.
That is a problem. Right? I don't see that as an issue. I know. I feel like for whatever reason, we feel like when we walk into a store that we are here with the money, and
No.
they do.
No.
Hang on. I'm not saying that you guys have. I just think it's like an underlying current in our American kind of like how we approach retail.
The customer is always right.
Exactly. Which
I
is,
don't agree with that.
You're the owner of the store, but if you're a customer, no good.
I think there's a difference though. It's not I am here to regale you with my dollars. Serve me. Versus, hey, you walked into my home. Hi.
Yeah,
that's it.
Maybe say hi.
Simple as that.
But when you think about it, like
I know what Shoppy's talking about, and they don't give a shit if you're alive, let alone you're inside their room. It's really weird. Like I've walked through that store and looked and been like, is someone working here? Like you feel like you don't eat, like what the hell's going on? Yeah. It's weird.
I don't know what store he's talking about. Because I do know a comic book store in Philadelphia that is famous for having a cat there that my experience has always been very welcoming when I go there. I have and I only go there now since maybe 2-3 times a year. Yet when I do, I'm almost always remembered by the people that are there, and if I see someone who I don't recognize, they do greet me when I come in, even if it is to check my bag, it is still to say, hey, how you doing, and then they check my bag and they say, do you need any help?
They do that.
So
the cat's very nice too.
Right. So I don't know if
this
is
super nice.
To be fair, I don't know if this is the same comic book store that you're talking about, but the comic book stores that I frequent, like my 2 comic book stores are Amalgam and Hero Complex. And there are probably, honestly, 2 other comic book stores that I go to that I'll visit like maybe about 2 or 3 times a year, just to, put my face into place. And my experience at both of those stores have been nothing but like cool.
Well, that's the other thing, right? So on another level, I try to keep aware of the other person's day.
Oh yeah.
Like and it's a lot of it maybe, first of all, it's empathy, right? It's me being empathetic towards someone else having a bad day. So if someone cuts me off in traffic, while there is a hint of I'm so angry at you for cutting me off, I also try to think maybe they just got a call that someone's dying.
Yeah.
And my feelings about traffic law notwithstanding,
right?
They have to get to a hospital or they have to get home to maybe the cat is sick or something. They're in a hurry.
Yeah.
So I try to be aware of that. So like even with Len, what you're saying. Maybe the person at the counter was just having a real bad day. They were breaking up with their girlfriend. Someone was sick, something like that. I always try to take those things into account. I know a lot of not retailers, customers, like people who shop, which is everybody. But they will go to a place like a restaurant, and they will have a bad experience at that restaurant the one time they were there, and then that restaurant is dead to them. I'm never going back there. Whereas I try to be like, well, I didn't like the wings, but I wonder how the cheesesteaks are, you know what I mean? Or something like that. Or maybe the chef, they had a bad chef that night.
Yeah.
Where's the threshold though?
What?
Where's the threshold? The entire menu? Or no, that's not even a hypothetical. I mean, like how many times until you start to kind of like create a pattern?
Oh, I would say if I go a second time and if I give him a second chance and it was still awful, then I'm like, I might rethink visiting there again.
You're dead to me. Yeah.
Then I will murder them.
Yeah. You'll be dead to everybody.
Yeah.
They will just be dead.
Is that the end of the email?
That was the end of his email. It was indeed.
Action Figure Expert says, hey, question for Gutter Talk. Do you guys think there is facial recognition in the DC universe? Maybe someone like Superman needs to start wearing a mask. I have an answer to this. And it was presented, I think, by John Byrne in the Man of Steel series for Superman that he did post-crisis, wherein there were cameras zipping around Metropolis trying to take pictures of Superman, and all of the pictures come back blurry. And they thought there was something wrong with the cameras. Turns out, Superman, whenever he's in his costume zipping around, he will vibrate his face at such a speed that you cannot take a picture of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Flash does that.
Awesome.
Yeah, Garrick. Yeah.
Yeah, but also too, the DC universe knows who he is.
Now we do. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
yeah.
True.
And also, there's how many other heroes are that popular and that like mysterious don't have some sort of face covering.
Yeah.
True.
That aren't like public.
Here's the other thing.
He was the only one.
Secret Identities started in the late 30s, and things were a lot different back then. It is.
That's a funny picture I always saw. This is what I always think of when people bring up Superman and facial recognition.
That's great.
It's always, yeah.
Explain it. Explain it for the audio.
Oh, right, for the audio people. So it's a picture of Lois, and she's on Facebook, and she shared a picture of herself being saved by Superman, and Facebook tagged it, and they're like, do you want to tag Clark Kent? And she's super surprised. She's like, wait a minute, what?
What an amazing comic strip. This, like a one panel, that is perfection. Thanks for bringing that. I was like, what is this down here? Who's this other person who's joined the stream?
Though, in defense of Lois, people are always like, how did she not realize she spent the whole Silver Age knowing that Clark Kent was Superman and trying to prove it and constantly being thwarted by some super hijinks that he did? Like, she knows. She just can't prove that he's Superman, and then believes it otherwise. But with any of these guys, like Secret Identities, I don't know that they would really work now. Like, maybe you wouldn't know who Batman is, but if somebody with enough resources wanted to find out, I think they could find out. You figure out who the Flash is by a variety of technological like, cameras everywhere. A
lot of stories now are subverting secret identities for the most part.
Yeah.
Like, if not fully revealing who the character is in their secret life or not, they will bring in other. They'll rectify that other characters knew or always knew or kind of know. Like even with the Joker now, like you've been dealing with this dude for 80 years.
Yeah,
I know he's Bruce. Like
on the CW shows, one thing I really like is that they still have secret identities, but the people close to them, they don't keep it from.
Yeah, they don't play that. Like, well, because also too, like I think that's kind of a societal thing too. It's not as widely accepted to just be constantly lying to your loved ones in your inner circle.
Yeah, it's not as widely accepted as it once was.
It's not as like living a lie is not as acceptable as it once was in the community.
Like the Flash got married in the comics. He got married to Iris without telling her that, like, here's a large thing what I do with my day, and it really is most of my own identity too.
Hey kids, look up consent.
Now it turns out she did know, but not because he told her. Like
earlier, Christopher St. Saucy Goodnight accused one of us as being woke. I'm going to say it's null consent.
No.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we have some woke topics. If you guys want to keep talking about facial recognition.
Why are we here? What's our gutter talk chats that we haven't even gotten to yet?
I know.
We've been talking for 2 hours. I think we've done.
That's what I was wondering.
A bunch of gutter talk.
All right. Brandon's been hot to talk about something specific. I guess we'll do it next week.
Well, yeah, but like Len said, it's been 2 hours. I don't want to be here all day.
Oh
yeah.
Nolan brought something up too, like this week that I thought we were going to talk about. So there's a few topics.
The two of them want to talk. What do you want to talk about?
Guys, look, I put together
drift.
There are two there.
Oh, it's just us now. Noel, have you heard about Time Lord Victoria? Doctor Who? Okay.
No. Okay. So there are
You
two
lost
topics.
your shot. You blew your shot.
No, I'm not gonna. This is my shot. I'm gonna take it.
You're not throwing away your shot?
There are two. There are two topics.
I can do the whole song if you want. I got it.
That are pretty prevalent in the comic book industry that we were going to come up or use as like a prompt to start conversation with you guys to get your opinions, because the whole idea of Gutter Talk is to kind of talk about what's happening outside of just the stories. Mm-hmm. So one of the first things was this underlying prevalence of sexism in comic books or in the comic book industry. It's always been kind of known that it's kind of like a boy thing, and most of the characters are cis white males, and women are usually objectified. This is an historic thing that's been happening. In the shadow of the Me Too movement, we've also been discovering that it's not only something that potentially happens on the page, but it's also something that's very prevalent in the industry. So in just the last 2 months, very large creators and editors are being accused and or admitting to sexual harassment, grooming, predatory behavior. And then on the other side, you have a lot of groups that are claiming that the industry is turning into a SJW factory, and they're exalting all of these voices by virtue of them only being of color or only being a gender other than male. Essentially, they're claiming affirmative action as opposed to opening up the industry. So, some of the things that are happening or that have happened recently, you've got creators like Warren Ellis was accused of grooming. Cameron Stewart was accused of predatory behavior. Scott Alley, who was the editor-in-chief of Dark Horse Comics, was straight up accused of sexual assault. Eddie Berganza, 2 years ago, notoriously harassing all of anybody in a skirt at DC for many years, and it was hidden. Scott Lobdell just stopped doing freelance work for DC in kind of a clandestine way, because it was kind of known, or at least assumed under the surface, that he's the kind of guy that doesn't understand what no means when advancing on a woman. And then you've got stuff like Make Mine Milkshake, which was like a Comicsgate thing, and the Whisper Network.
What are those? What are those things? Those are the only ones that I didn't know when you sent up our notes here.
Make My Milkshake was essentially almost the start or the opening salvo of Comicsgate. Okay. So a group of female editors and writers at Marvel.
Heather Antos. I think it was mainly started by Heather Antos, who was the editor for Star Wars, and Gwenpool is how I know her. So yeah.
Yeah, but that's not what he's about to go. I know where he's going.
Well, no, she was the part of. Keep going.
Let him go. Let him go, Brandon.
At work, they took a lunch and had milkshakes together and posted it on social media. All the ladies of Marvel, or Ladies of Marvel editorial, having a Sunday together and shared it and hashtagged it. Make My Milkshake, Make My Marvel.
Yeah.
And it turned into this weird backlash about women in comics and voices in comics, and the Comicsgate whole thing kind of used it as an example of them not doing their job well. I still don't even to this day understand why it was a problem of people that work together having a milkshake together.
Because it was in their face that it was all women, I assume, is
maybe that's the emotional reaction to it. But then also just recently, and that was years ago at this point, recently they had the whole thing of the Whisper Network. So apparently one woman was talking to another woman in comics about how a man affected them. And that was called a Whisper Network of
they talk to
undermining
each other about serious problems that they're having in their lives. I got you.
But apparently that's predatory against very innocent men, just when two women talk to each other about them. So I think it's these weird double standards that shouldn't exist, but are slowly being made prevalent in the comic book industry. So the question, the prompt, with all that context and pretext, is: does the comic book industry have a systemic issue when it comes to sexism and harassment? And if so, how do you think that the comic book industry should respond that isn't going to cause even more fire, right?
Well, first of all, I think that the comic book industry does have a systemic issue when it comes to women and people of other colors on the page and behind the page. I think it is definitely there. And I think that as those voices are being heard more and more, and if those people and those voices are getting opportunities to shine within the the heart of the industry as far as comics goes, and with that it's the big two, Marvel and DC, with maybe Image and Dark Horse on the side, as well as because the 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 path of entry into the field has been democratized so much over the last few years that more people can take their own shots and be successful in it, find an audience. Those successes are the answers that will change the system slowly and surely. But those successes are what will change the system. What we are hearing is, unfortunately, is the squeezing of that small minority. I want to hope that it is rebelling against it because it goes against, how they feel things should be, whether or not they are racist, whether or not they are chauvinistic or sexist, what have you. They are just blind to the privilege that they have been afforded all these many years, and that privilege being called on put on display, and they don't like that. And they're feeling that pinch. You know what I mean? I want to think that that's a very loud and vocal minority, but they are loud, and that's why the our voices have to be as loud, but more deliberate and strategic in how we do it, and don't fall into the trap of just matching scream for scream.
Yeah, it's. I think it is more of an issue of volume. Like they're so loud that it's starting to sound like they're the only voice, and then that's inaccurate. But I did have a follow-up question though, with what you mentioned. Like the way to win, the way to rectify it, the way to make it right, I think is probably more accurate. But is to succeed in telling those stories and getting those voices.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that when you have a large audience, you also have a responsibility. Like freedom of speech is an inherent right, but when 1 billion people listen to you, your freedom has a different responsibility than somebody just on the street, even though it is an inherent responsibility or right.
Although you still have responsibility for just one person.
Yes, but the ramifications of that responsibility are completely different.
Very true. Yeah.
So with that said, my belief, do you think that the big two and maybe Image have a responsibility to make moves towards progress, have a responsibility to highlight those voices or amplify those voices in order to combat? Or do you think that they are better served ignoring it?
I think they do have a responsibility to do it, and I think that for the most part they are trying to. Now you can argue with maybe some of their methodology of doing so, of both. You agree with some moves, and some moves you don't agree. Some things maybe they give up on too soon, and some things may feel like that a little forced. But I think they are trying to find their way. I think for the most part, Marvel has been a little forced in doing it, but for the most part, they've been successful in doing it. And as forced as some things have been, they've also done some things that have been smartly done as well. I think DC is slow to catch up the train, but that's unfortunately the way DC has always been historically. Go ahead, Brandon.
But I feel like, I don't know, I always feel that DC is slower but better. Like I feel that Marvel will put characters in their comics that are like representative, but then they'll those characters will kind of be, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like token characters. Like they're not really characters. They're just like stand-ins for people. Whereas I feel like DC will do the thing where they'll actually hire people behind the scenes who are actually in the positions that need to be highlighted. Like I was just watching one of the Comic-Con at Home panels on, I think it was called like Out in Comics. And one of the creators was, I forget what the book he worked on was, but it was one of DC's more recent books about a gay character who like also discovers he has like aqua superpowers. And I feel like that's the type of thing that actually changes things, because you're actually hiring a creator who knows what people are going through. And when that person tries to do the thing they want to do, you give them the leeway to do it. Like he was talking about how DC was super open to him like having two guys kiss in a book and things like that. Whereas when you look at like Marvel and you look at like Cena Grace, he's written a few things about how Marvel was very reticent to let him do certain things in his Iceman book, with Iceman being gay. So it's like, if you put the character in a book and then you don't actually highlight the things that people like that go through, then it's not really worth it. Which is why I feel like Marvel definitely does more, and the stuff they do is good. But I think that DC, in my experience, puts more work into doing it well, as opposed to just doing a lot of it.
JD.
I have, I'm sorry, I was with a customer, and so I've just sort of tuned back in. And this may have already been brought up, but responding to Brandon's thing about having a character of a particular sexuality or maybe even race or whatever, is there something to be said for the person in that story? Who was, you said there was a character who had water powers and they were gay?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. It was a Young Animal book, I think.
Was it the OGN?
From Young Justice, but then he made his way.
I think he's talking about that new OGN.
Yeah, there
you brought me the ocean?
There was an ad.
Yeah, you brought me the ocean. Yeah.
You brought me the ocean. Yeah. So, my question is there something to be said for when a character of a certain sexuality shows up, and that is not, the story is not only about their sexuality, and it's just, this is a story about a person, that person happens to have this sexuality without focusing, and I think to me that seems like a step forward, where we can have a show, like a show that has queer characters in it, and it's not, what was that, something Will and Grace, where every joke is about gay?
Right.
Like we have a sitcom, and it's got characters who are gay in it, but the joke isn't that they're gay all the time. You know what I mean? It's not the defining aspect of their character.
And it's not the defining, someone's sexuality is not the defining aspect of their character in real life too. So I agree with that. But I lost my thought. Is how just devil's advocate, how is that much different than being colorblind? Like if you homogenize a race because they're just like us or something like that, then you remove their culture from them as characters, and it doesn't matter anymore. And that's when they become tokens, like you had mentioned, Brandon. So I think there's somewhere in the middle, right? Like you have to identify the characteristics and the traits and the sexuality and the race. You have to identify that cultural aspect of the character, right?
Well,
but it can't be the basis of every single thing that comes out of their mouth or do. Right. It's you can't ignore it, and you also can't only lean into it as a defining character trait, because no one is like that.
As with anything, there's a middle ground, right?
Yeah.
I think a varied response is what makes a lot of stuff work, right? Because there are people who that's their identity touchstone. And there are people that never think about that at all in real life, I think. The diversity thing, Brandon, I think you came up with it exactly, is that like doing it behind the scenes will produce good stuff in the scenes, And I think about one of the kind of practical problems of it for DC Comics. The big three are set, right? Like the main characters are set, and it's very, very hard to get somebody into the top level, I think that having Jon Stewart as the Green Lantern is like one successful version of that. I was interested in your guys' opinions about how you feel about Martian Manhunter being portrayed as black now. Like, does that count as representation. You know, he's Martian, he's not black, but he is played by a black actor on Supergirl. And it's a way to get more representation. It's not gender related, but it's representational.
I don't mean nothing to me.
I don't have no thoughts.
He's literally played by the most alien looking black guy anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
But that's not the only place that he has. You know, there's been a tradition.
Right.
I think it's like.
I think he was like that in Justice in New Frontier. I think he was black.
No.
Was he not? Oh, my bad.
In New Frontier.
Yeah.
I think like, not to that point, but going back to what Brandon had said too, like the right and the wrong way to do it, you know, to paraphrase, behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, trial and error, essentially.
Yeah.
I think we could probably all learn from, especially because these groups that we're talking about flipped the F out, trying to insert diversity into your big three that are set, right? You know, your main characters, even if it's just temporary, caused a very uncomfortable uproar.
Yeah.
But switching out writers and staff, the uproar became underground and only on Twitter and only in YouTube channels where it was like really pernicious and gross, where people were getting like doxxed and attacked. I don't fault either big two for doing either one, right? Like, I think as much as it didn't maybe work for Marvel, what they did I thought was spectacular. Introducing characters like Kamala Khan and Miles Morales and the Mighty Thor and Riri,
right? Like Miles Morales and Kamala Khan are still around. They're strong.
All of them are still around. And they are.
Well, I just mean, like, when you think about like a few years ago, like you remember like the all new, all different Marvel, and it was like it was like what's his name? Sam Wilson, Cap. It was Jane, Thor. And it's like those kind of people. Riri, I think, was the main Iron Man at the time. I think it might not have been, but it was like
they were like 3 Iron Men.
Yeah,
I think so.
I feel like just a lot of those things, they were like, oh, people don't like it, and I feel like they kind of caved a little early. Like the thing I think about all the time is Marvel. Like, he died, and then people were mad, and they wanted him to come back. And I read something that the creator said. Because like his dad had died from cancer, and so that's why Marvel died from cancer. And he said, when my dad comes back, Marvel will come back. And it's like a thing where, because it was so important to him, Marvel stuck with it. And nowadays they made a Captain Marvel movie, and it was Carol Danvers. It wasn't Marvel. So my thing is, like, if you stick with it long enough, I think, then people will get used to it. And I just think sometimes they don't stick with it long enough. But at the same time, obviously, if books aren't good, then I understand changing it. So it's tricky.
I think the problem was twofold with Marvel, the all new, all different Marvel, which I really liked it. I am a person who has been reading comics for so long that I want to read the next thing. I want to read what's the word for it? The evolution of that thing. So I like when characters pass on their mantles to other characters, you know, Kyle Rayner, Wally West, etc. Those are my favorite kinds of stories. But I think with the all new, all different Marvel, I think the problem was that they did too many too quickly. You know, the landscape was completely different, like from 1 month to the next. All of a sudden, all the characters were different characters. And then I think a lot of people had trouble with Jane Foster was Thor, even though his name was Thor. All of a sudden, she had his name, Thor. And Iron Man, the Iron Man book was actually Ironheart. So I can see why people would be upset that the characters were being taken away from them, because they're picking up a Thor book, and Thor is now a different character. And Ironheart is not Iron Man. They're Ironheart.
Counterpoint, for a year, Captain America was not in his own book, only his supporting cast.
When he died, yeah.
But along that line, there were a lot of people that were really upset about that, but then the book was awesome and they liked it. And there wasn't the racism, sexism element as well. Yeah. Of course, that is important. Yeah.
I mean, it's still like the apex of strong blonde white guy versus all of these other characters that were replaced by people of color for the most part. Do you think that there's something in it, like with Captain America versus?
Because Thor is also a strong blonde white guy, so I wasn't sure.
No, I mean, like if you take that rationale where people, which I think is true. This is just like a maybe. People go to the Iron Man book because they want to see Tony Stark as Iron Man. I get, but that happened with Captain America, where they went to the Captain America book because they want to see Captain America, but it was a supporting cast of different races for however long, versus replaced by Riri Williams for a short period of time, or Doom for a short period of time, or Jane Foster. Does that have anything to do with potentially, or did that give ammunition to shitty people to complain about it being women and people of color?
Samuel David chimes in and says, "Yeah, but if a book is just not good, it doesn't matter how long you stick with it." But that's subjective.
Of course, it has to be subjective, right? But if you're not liking something, then maybe you can examine why you don't like it, and maybe you'll uncover something about yourself, and then you can like the book. But you might just not like the book. I mean, that is possible. I think a lot of the basis of it is right. A lot of people, me included, like one thing we like about comics is the power fantasy, right? Like, oh, it would be really cool if I had super speed, like that kind of thing. And if you start with a character that has, whatever powers and they are of whatever race or gender, that's one thing. But there can be an element where you're like, wait a second, Thor is now a woman. I am one step farther from being able to imagine myself in the place of these characters. Now, this is not to say one thing or another about how you should feel about those characters, but I think that is part of where this anger comes from. That's my guess.
Yeah, that's delusion versus empathy, though. Like you can empathize with any character, character. Like if you're too delusional to not even want to take the leap to enjoy it, then that's an inherent issue of the reader, not the story being successful or not.
Well, I'm talking about. I mean, I'm empathizing with them. Like I'm trying to find where they are coming from.
You know what? That's a really good point, though. Like as a cis white straight male, it's easy for us to take those steps to. I get what they're mad about. I think it's incredibly irrational and stupid.
Yeah.
But I think I get the idea of you having all of this control and a modicum of it being taken away, so it feels like it's the slippery slope.
Representation is important, right?
I understand
themselves on the screen.
I understand it. I empathize with it. I get it. But I think that they're fucking wrong. I think that they're evil, and I think that they're angry and stupid, and I think that to attach it to something as malleable as storytelling is folly. It's so
cyclical storytelling, right?
Yeah. That makes it even worse. It's not like, I mean, we haven't had permanent changes in comics since Captain Marvel died, and they found ways to bring him back 1,700 times as being either a scroll or a memory or time travel, or like nothing really ends.
But to put it to a bit of a point, especially with the Jane Foster becoming Thor thing, that did happen in the Thor comic book. It stayed in the Thor comic book. When the Captain America dies, the comic book becomes the adventures of Captain America's supporting cast. You know what I mean? And even when Sam Wilson at one time takes over Captain America's comic, it still is Captain America. So there is something to be argued about the forced nature of somebody like Riri Williams taking the Iron Man shot and then the book becoming Iron Heart, as opposed to it being just a storyline in Iron Man that runs for however long it does. You know what I mean?
What about James Rhodes? How do people feel about that? Does anybody remember?
It was still Iron Man. It stayed Iron Man. She left her book. She left the book and then chose the name Ironheart and had her own book. So like,
okay, that's right, because there was still an Iron Man book still being put out. Okay.
She was the supporting cast that was kind of upgraded for about.
She got a spinoff.
Issues.
She got a spinoff,
Yeah.
and that's the way that it's. And technically, that is the way that it is supposed to work. So which then makes their argument ring hollow. It's like, what do you want? You still had your Iron Man, and she got her own book. You can either not read that own book or not.
This comment's good.
You can argue whether or not it's forced. Samuel David left us a comment. Why do we have to get rid of something good to diversify? Can't we just create new, good, kick-ass characters instead of getting rid of something that is loved? As a Latino person, I don't want to see a Latino Captain America. I love Steve Rogers. I feel you on that. However, to use the vehicle of Captain America, Iron Man, Thor as a window into creating a new character is just called marketing 101. And I'm not going to knock them for doing that if they are smart about developing that character so that it is something that is still out there and prevalent, such as Riri Williams, Ms. Marvel,
Miles Morales. Jane Foster's book now, Valkyrie. Like, these were all ways to just elevate them to their own original stories. All they did was leverage IP, which is what you're supposed to do.
Right. Exactly. The most egregious thing, and then I've talked about it ad nauseum, I'm only going to mention it again one time right here, because it still pisses on my neck, is when, and this is DC getting it wrong, when they want to, and now, yes, it is old, bring back, the white guy to supplant the brother. When they had a perfect opportunity, there's no reason why Jon Stewart should be on the sidelines. There's absolutely no reason for Jon Stewart to be on the sidelines, because there was 10 years of when Jon Stewart was the dominant Green Lantern in the DC universe.
From the cartoon, you mean?
From the cartoon.
Wait. Keep going.
In many ways, he was people's introduction into Green Lantern. So to then force Hal Jordan, I'm not even talking about Barry Allen, because y'all know how I feel about that bore, but just about Hal Jordan, to force him back onto the scene, and then just like do some whole machinations of his character. Now he's a man without fear. Like, get the out of here, man.
Wait. He always was.
Wait, so then
no, he wasn't.
You say that.
Just the man without fear.
What about bringing Wally West back? Because to me, that's a very similar thing. But
I didn't want to go on Wally West, because that's replacing.
I'm not talking about
a white guy for a white guy.
No, it's not. I'm talking about Wallace, who was originally black, and he was going to be the Wally West, and then they decided to bring back the redheaded Wally West. And they made him all special, and they made him Dr. Manhattan and everything, and it's a very similar thing, but everyone's okay with that. But
nobody's okay with it, because no one understood the difference between Wallace and Wally, because editorially they couldn't get their shit straight.
No, nobody.
So it's we couldn't even. Go ahead.
They didn't put him in the universe as Wally West. He would, Wally West, second sidekick, became the Flash, was the Kid Flash again. The guy who became Wallace West was not any of those things. He was like third generation. I think that was the problem with him, was that he wasn't just black. They changed his character completely. And I remember hearing a complaint about him being like a stereotypical, like Barry Allen met him as the Flash when he was graffitiing something and being a lawbreaker. And I remember hearing somebody was like, what the hell is this? Why can't he just be black?
I feel like people only have that problem when they actually have a different problem with the character. Like, people don't have a problem with Miles Morales graffitiing in Into the Spider-Verse. Like, people only have that problem with really they don't like the character, and then they're like, also, it's racist.
That's something I've seen. Opinion that I heard from somebody else who was writing. I mean, he was a black man and he was writing it. I read that article. So,
but the difference with Miles Morales doing the graffiti is that there is there is something he's doing the graffiti for a reason. It's an expression. It's more to his character as opposed to him just being a way of showing that he's a lawbreaker. No,
he also does it. He does it in the most lawful way possible, being an underground abandoned train station,
right? And
cleans off the stickers. Like it's different. The characterization is different. It's just a quirk.
Yeah. So there's the difference there.
Yeah. The thing with Wallace is so if people want to like get on a horse about like forced diversity, they did it based off the show, and then they narratively tried to squeeze that shit in somehow, and it didn't make sense for most readers because already DC continuity was not making sense whatsoever because they skipped everything 5 years, but still wanted to maintain all the fun stuff.
Right.
So like they truncated it and switched it and cherry picked it, and now they're inserting a new character with the same name of a character that wasn't existing in the current continuity anyway, but then he was going to exist again. It was just broken from jump. And
people were already upset about it. People were already like, Wally West, the Flash that I've loved for years. Yeah,
it was just weird. Yeah. That was just a weird instance. Like,
what do you guys think about the redhead trend? Have you guys noticed that? There's a lot of characters that are changed to black were previously redheads. And I don't know, is that still, there's like a little bit of racism there where it's
I can only think of two.
Okay, there's who is it?
Wallace and Lightning Lad.
Yeah, Lightning Lad. Who was the first one? Wallace, Lightning Lad. I think Zendaya was playing MJ. And this is not to say like I am not expressing a problem with these changes. The issue that I'm expressing is why is it always the redhead? Is that still symptomatic of like, oh, we're going to give him an unusual looking white person? You know what I mean?
Well, they replaced Nick Fury.
That's true. That's true.
He wasn't redhead.
He was not. He was not. Well, it's not everybody. I just noticed this pattern. Ariel in The Little Mermaid. And it could just be coincidence. Lana Lang in the upcoming
Ariel in The Little Mermaid.
There's an upcoming
on the TV show.
Oh, in the movie. Oh.
Yeah. Okay. And Lana Lang in the upcoming TV show. Starfire also. Good point.
I mean, well,
although she's
orange.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
My people are being shunned.
And all of this, we started talking about with sexism as well. And it's interesting because in the very early comics, Lois Lane is an incredibly powerful. I mean, she was a star reporter in the late 30s and 40s.
And she's been around for 80 years. Where's her special?
She had a book. It just ended.
I mean, it was a 12-issue special, and it was spectacular.
You know what I was thinking, Len, is that they did Action 1000 and Detective 1000, and then when those were successful, they started doing 80-year specials. Maybe Lois will get an 85. Because it's like 3 years now for her.
Len, did you read the Lois Lane book?
I read a couple of issues of it. It was good, yes.
He's a trade waiter.
Shut you up, didn't I, Spectre?
He's a trade waiter. It's fine.
We've gone off the track here of...
No, we were getting... Brian was getting back to it.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I think it's really important, I suspect. We hear about this in Hollywood, right? And we now have started to hear about it in comics. Those people are famous. I don't think it is a problem with Hollywood and comics and the entertainment industry. I think it is a problem with people in power. Who is the CEO of whatever company that I've never heard of? How are they acting? I suspect it's just as bad, if not worse. And how do you fix that? Nobody's talking about them because nobody knows who they are.
Well, yeah, that's it. This is a public. The entertainment industry, the comic book industry, music industry, they have direct access or fan direct access to the end product. The other, most powerful millionaires and billionaires in the world, there's tons and tons of layers of unseen apparatus that are keeping the end user away from all of that. Right. So there's it feels like it's farther away and it's probably much easier to hide. But now that the world is smaller and everyone.
These are like business people who went into business all's fair in business, right? Like, it's just business. These are very sometimes, at least with the artists, these are a bunch of sensitive people, and it's still happening. Well,
I think that this is directly related to like the second topic that I put in that we won't even like have to go into it if you want to, but like going back to, do publishers have responsibilities when you have an audience and a voice? Do you have a responsibility? By all accounts, it looks like Dynamite Entertainment, Dynamite Comics, was, in bed with Comicsgate, which is the largest group of, we'll call them a hate group, the loudest group that opposes these acts of diversity or these initiatives to kind of, open up the playing field, not take away seats, but add seats to the industry and the audiences. So they got caught advertising for Comicsgate because they had a program, which led to a lot of writers, a lot of creators, artists and writers abstaining from working for Dynamite, and a lot of retailers saying they wouldn't sell or buy. A lot of consumers stepping away, voting with their dollar. This caused a big uproar. Not only did those on the, let's call it the right side of the argument, feel as though Dynamite was bending a knee and shouldn't have to do this, and all that matters is good comics. And then you had people on the left side of the argument saying, no, this is the only control we have, so we're not going to work for you and or contribute to your bottom line if we feel that you are out of line or supporting hate. So what they did was, not only did they cancel what they were advertising, they also got rid of all of their crowd-funded projects, which usually most of the Comicsgate and or parallel groups would jump on top of. But they also issued a statement, which a lot of people thought was incredibly lacking. Almost so much as there was a shit ton of snark in how they talked about it. And I want to read a little bit of it, and I want to get your guys' impression if you hadn't read this yet, which is awesome. So it goes as follows. Dynamite Entertainment is a partner in the fight for equality and inclusion. Our company was founded on these core values more than 15 years ago, and they are essential to the creative process, the work of visionary artists and entrepreneurs that we are passionate about. Intolerance has no place in our company or our industry. The impulse behind this brief association that was of helping a friend of many decades and his family, and not how that assistance could potentially affect our valued colleagues, partners, and friends. That association is behind us, and this has strengthened our resolve to continue working with the most diverse talent in creating the best comics possible. They followed that statement with another paragraph talking about all the women and people of color that they work with. Dynamite works with some of the most high-profile creators in comics and entertainment, including Gail Simone, Christopher Priest, Andy Mingles, Leah Moore, Kevin Smith, David Walker, Vita Ayala, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and a host of upcoming talent. So, in their statement, many people found lacking that they didn't talk about what the problem was. They didn't address any next steps as to how they would go farther.
Well,
they
behind them.
They
did say the association is behind us, and it has strengthened our resolve to continue working. They didn't say specifically what they would do, but
they didn't say what they say. Yeah, they didn't say what the association was at all. But they also gaslit the whole thing of it being, "Oh, we were just helping out a friend." We didn't know.
I don't see it as snarky, to be honest. You can read it.
Oh no,
but
this is not snarky. Right. How it was reported was snarky.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so like a lot of the sites were like, Dynamite made an apology, I think. Like those were literally headlines. Like the fact that it's very milquetoast and whitewashed of, we didn't know that this was a hate group because we don't pay attention. And we were just helping a friend who just happens to have $1 million worth of crowdsourced angry white guys. Like they pleaded ignorance and then never said what they pleaded ignorance about. Just that we're cool now, right?
What's the what are they talking about? Is the
so you're familiar with Comicsgate, you're familiar with Ethan Van Sciver.
Yeah.
his inner circle, his like main 5 dudes of Comicsgate or whatever, they were taking advantage of this Indiegogo thing with Dynamite Comics, where if they agreed to put a Dynamite character on their crowdsourced stuff, it would turn into a whole thing, and they would be able to advertise through Dynamite Comics their Comicsgate stuff. So not only was this happening, it was happening on the side for a while, like for like 2 years they were doing this and no one was really talking about it. But then Dynamite started advertising it on their Twitter, and that put people's eyes to it. And then that kind of created the rabbit hole of, how long have you been working with Comicsgate? Are you a Comicsgate company now? And a lot of their writers and artists were just like, whoa, what?
Right.
And then that kind of turned into this whole thing. But then it was revealed that like the editor in chief or the president of Dynamite, Nick Barucci, has been working with Comicsgate. He's been donating on their live streams. He helped set up EVS for all of his crowdsourcing. Like they gave him, like they were hiring all these guys for variant covers. So like they have kind of been sourcing and funding this indirectly. So to bring the conversation back, when it comes to when you have an audience, do you have a responsibility? Do you think that Dynamite is complicit in funding division, or do you think that they're just stuck in the middle of this division while trying to make a dollar? And how would you respond to that as a consumer?
I want to think that they are kind of like stuck in the middle. I want to give somebody the benefit of a doubt that, you know, you do develop friends in this industry, especially if you're a publisher and artist. Yeah. And you may not be fully informed on how they are politically or socially inclined, because you may deal with them on a personal level. And if you see, like, if I deal with, case in point, because I asked you guys earlier off mic about, you know, losing any friends who were Trump followers, right? Now, I knew a guy who, I was working like this little part-time situation, and we both went through training together. And me and him were like the oldest people in the training situation, so we kind of like latched on to one another. Older white guy. We had, you know, could make the same references, and we kind of like bonded with one another through the training. We're cool as hell. I mean, like, you know, he wasn't like my best friend or anything like that, but he was a good dude. I would go, and it was like, it was fun to see him. Like, yo, what's up, and we would eat lunch and whatever. And then one day we had to go somewhere together, so he gave me a lift, and he had a Trump bumper sticker. And I was like, you follow Trump? And he said, yeah, I do. And so we had like a couple of minute conversation about it, and could see that politically we disagreed. big time, right?
Bigly,
right?
So you're not Trump supporter, Len? Is that accurate?
That would be accurate. I lean very far the other way. I am planking the other direction. So you know, I resigned myself to like, okay, we disagree here. But for the most part, he seems like a good dude. He talked to me about his grandchildren, his wife, and he seemed like a good dude. You know, I would have never thought any differently of him. But then after that, I started picking up some little things in how he was talking, and how who he, like, you know, how you might make a funny comment about somebody or something. And I started noting whom he's making the funny comments about. Right, and what he's alluding to in those funny comments. And I started to get a deeper sense into who he was. And I'm like, wow, for the most part, you're still kind of a cool dude, but I can't mess with you anymore, dog. And I had to disassociate. You know what I mean? And
I think there's
I think there's an argument to be had from the publisher of Dynamite if he has a relationship with Ethan Van Sciver, who's like the biggest name in the Comicsgate world, that is on a more personal level, that maybe he didn't know the whole deal, and then once he does it, he don't know how to act. Now, am I being maybe a little bit more forgiving of him than most people? Probably, but
that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
well, I'm sorry.
No, keep going.
I think, to your point, I think that you can't unring that bell though. So there was a linchpin piece of information that you were given that opened your eyes to all of the other things that supported it.
Exactly.
Had you not had that linchpin piece of information, you wouldn't have noticed maybe all of those red flags. Nick Perucci.
JD has commented as well that just since, he's not here, he says you have to pick up on those red flags with any new relationships, and Trump support is a big one for him.
Yeah, so like that's a great analogy though. Like if you didn't, Nick Perucci now, or the head of Dynamite Comics now has been made aware of this linchpin piece of information that would very much affect his bottom line in his business. Also should affect how he treats himself or presents himself in any public forum, whether it's digital or otherwise.
Right.
It's a linchpin piece of information that should affect your actions going forward if you don't want to contribute to that sect, that group. Knowing that and the level of his response, because Samuel David here says, well, they did apologize. Isn't that good? It wasn't really an apology. It was a mea culpa. And they also didn't say what they apologized for, except I was just helping a friend. That's as strong as I was just following orders. I didn't see him going. I just got out of his way. Like, that's not taking account for literally anything other than you being a good person and a victim. As a leader, own what you own. Say what you did and what you will do. This is weak. Just verbally, it's weak.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
I think it's weak.
Okay, fair. I don't know about that because let's take it on its face value. He was helping out a friend, right?
Yes.
So maybe it really was about him helping out a friend. Now, like you said, he's got a key point of information. Yo, that runs against everything that we do. I can't fuck with you, dude. I gotta cut ties. And he cuts ties. Now, as a business, he has to make a statement about it, right? But if you were indeed helping out a friend, then you also now are kind of trying to walk a fine line. Maybe you're not as friendly with the dude, but you also are still you also do have to deal with the personal relationship that you do have with somebody. So you do have to maybe couch what you're putting out there a little bit. And could he maybe have put some more detail in it? True, maybe, but he does speak about what Dynamite is about. He does speak about which, as he puts it, is everything that Comicsgate is not about. He does speak about working with creatives who some are, who in the names that he lists are some names that Comicsgate have come out against.
Yeah.
So he is putting that out there as well, that he works with those people. So I am putting it out there that I am decidedly against everything that they put out. If I'm not coming out and saying it super dramatically in the words that you would, out of perhaps respect to whatever relationship that I've had with somebody, then that's a bullet that I'm gonna have to carry. But I am trying to tell you that I am on the right side of justice here, and I can say that because on the Black Tribbles, we've had to walk that fine line. We've had somebody that left our show for reasons of his own that were against some of the things that we're about. And that person, for his own reason, has not chose to really put his story out there. And it is first and foremost his story to put out there. So I'm not going to put his story out there. We haven't, and we won't. And, but we had to release a statement where we spoke about what we stand for, and somebody's not here. Did we go into any great details about it? No, because it's not our story to tell. But that's what that's what we're going to tell our part. We're going to reinforce what we stand for. They're not here. We're moving forward, and that's what he's trying to do. And and yes, it's a hard bar to cross and to get over, especially when you've got the world's expectations looking at you and everybody feels like they know the right way to say these things. None of you do, because none of you are in that situation. And I'm telling you, as somebody that was in that situation, it is hard. When you have a personal relationship with somebody, and I'm not talking about the Trump dude, I'm talking about somebody totally different, personal long-time friendship with someone, and you've got to in some way cut ties without maybe cutting as many ties, because you hope to try to have save something there. It's not easy to do.
What's very ironic about this, though, is the people in the Comicsgate field are more offended by it than anyone else.
No.
Because they deal in such absolutes of bend the knee, you're with us or you're not, that this was the equivalent of naming names, setting houses on fire, throwing shit at your door, when they tried to, like, he in essence did go as far as that's unforgivable and impermissible to that group. So, I mean, why not just name it? You know, like the way that the group has always functioned is in those absolutes, in those like really, really angry and scream it out and impotent nastiness. So this almost made everything worse because he couldn't address either faction in any kind of correct way. Do you know what I mean? That's why I feel it's weak. Not because I don't agree with it or he's trying to like get out there. And actually, I'm a little upset because there's a lot of Dynamite stuff that I love and read. But I'm not going to anymore until I feel like these aren't just empty words, because they are a little weak. However, he was trying to square the circle is like...
That's kind of all you can do. I think at the end of the day, that is all you can do. Screeching at people, harassing people, tweeting at them, doxing them, all this other stuff is just silly, childish nonsense, when really at the end of the day, vote with your dollar, spend your money on the things that you want to spend your money on, support the things that you want to support. Whenever there's something I don't like, if there's a comic I don't like, I go, well, that wasn't for me. And then I find another book that I like. I vote with my dollars. I buy the books that I want to spend my money on. And I don't waste my time trying to bring down things, comics or pieces of art or things that I don't like. I just...
Well, that's not always enough, though. Because, if someone is Comicsgate, just, voting with your dollar isn't enough if they're going to screech, if Gail Simone is going to constantly be getting, death threats and things like that, you can't just have that be the only thing she's getting. And you can't have it be that, because then it seems like people agree with it. Sometimes silence, almost equals complicity.
Brandon,
whatever the word is.
I think you hit on maybe a really great solution, but I'm not sure that it was shined on enough. That can't be the only thing that she is getting, right? Do we have to yell at the Comicsgate people?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But you say to Gail Simone, let's even it out. You tweet her how great she is. Maybe that is helpful.
Isn't that literally what I just said?
But people also have to know when they're doing wrong. You have to tell, people have to know they're doing wrong. And I don't think that means screeching at them, but if you take into account like the Jay Lee thing, for example, he didn't know that he was working for Comstate. At least that's what he says.
Right.
So if you don't say anything, then he would just continue to do it. Like if no one told him, then he would just do it. Like something, you have to say something. You just don't have to be aggressive about how you say it.
Even
that is not against the thing that I'm saying.
Well, you said just vote with your wallet and to not say. It sounded like you were saying don't say anything.
That's not all he said.
Okay, I might have misheard.
But the Jay Lee thing is kind of a perfect example of I didn't know, oops. But then also part of the statement was that people like his statement that people didn't really pay attention to was that he emphatically claimed I'm not a part of any groups, meaning that he could still work for Comicsgate if he wants to. He doesn't care about affiliation. So how do we as fans respond to that if it's important to us, whether you like that artist or not? Like, all right, I mean, it's cool. I know you're not a bigot, but if you get paid by bigots, I'm not going to give you my dollars. I'm sorry. Like, it doesn't matter at that point when you have an audience. It doesn't necessarily matter what you truly believe. How you move your audience is just as powerful or is just as impactful.
I don't know. I didn't read it as him saying like he doesn't care, but I didn't read it.
But it could be. It was like first of all, that was an awful scenario. Like, they were mourning their dog's death.
Nobody was on that.
Nobody came out of that good.
We should say what it is if we're gonna mention it.
Yeah, so Tom King, who writes for DC Comics, saw that Jay Lee had done a cover for a Comicsgate.
It was EVS.
Cyberfrog.
He did.
For EVS.
Yeah.
He did a cover for Ethan Van Sciver, Cyberfrog. And so Tom King said, I'm disappointed. I tweeted about it without reaching out to Jay Lee, which I think was, as soon as I saw this, I was like, did you ask Jay Lee? Like,
yeah,
it seems weird. You guys are in the same industry. You think you could at least shoot off an email or something without calling him out publicly about it. And so I think that was a big problem, is just being like, I'm going to shine a light on this guy, whether or not he knows about it.
Well, what happened was he said that Jay Lee did a variant cover for his book, Rorschach, and then he said that he doesn't consider that to be like the main cover, and he doesn't necessarily support that cover on his book because DC doesn't consult their writers when picking a book. And I'm just saying why Tom King was getting involved in the first place is because it was his book.
That's true.
It was his book. Yeah, he didn't have any kind of control as to who would do the variant covers, and he wanted to make that clear. And he, by virtue, doesn't support, like, even if Jay Lee supports Comicsgate, I do not support Comicsgate, even though his cover is on my book.
Yeah.
But he didn't actually do the legwork. He just jumped at, oh shit, this might look bad. But he didn't do the legwork of actually asking Jay Lee or getting in touch with Jay Lee to find out any context.
And it's stuff like this where I understand where people get upset at. I mean, never mind the hypocrisy of saying that you are against cancel culture and then canceling things. But I understand why people would get upset at cancel culture, because that was someone jumping out trying to cancel somebody without all of the facts, right? Or at least reaching out to that person. So it doesn't help.
We should finish the story. Because so then after that, Tom King later tweeted, he talked to Jay Lee, and Jay Lee didn't realize what Comicsgate was, and he said, we're all good. And then a few days later, Jay Lee posted a picture on Instagram with a long caption mentioning that he had been getting a lot of hate and things like that for this thing that Tom King had put him involved in, and he was dealing with the death of his dog, and it had been a horrible situation for him, and he was really angry. I don't remember his exact statement, but he was saying he was really angry with Tom King for how he handled it, and he said, no, we're not all good.
We're not all good.
Tom King waited a few days, and then he posted something on Twitter where he said, I was in the wrong. I shouldn't have done that. I have now apologized privately to Jay Lee, and now I'm doing it publicly. He left the tweets up for a few days, he said, so that it didn't look like he was trying to hide them or anything. But now that he'd given them some time, he was going to delete them. And I think that's where we're at now.
Yeah, and honestly, as much of a shit that he was, or responsive shit that he was to do it, I do respect that kind of apology, whereas
Sure.
This is what I did wrong. This is how I fucked up. This is how I will do better. This is what I've done to rectify it. I'm not making excuses. Now I'm taking them down for this specific reason as to not continue the narrative that I was incorrect about. And he just went away. So I actually do kind of respect that. There's no wiggle room in what he said. There's no larger like, well, I don't support hate without actually saying what you don't support. Like these nebulous things of like he was very direct with his apology, which I appreciated. And we'll just see if he follows through on it. If he doesn't do this shit again. I would be for it.
I think that we have gotten to a point where, again, in society, where the side that we don't agree with it seems so bad, right? That to even empathize with them or to have any sort of admission like, well, I was friends with that person, right? Is passed out, is impossible to do and maintain being a good person, right? And I mean, you guys know I don't agree with any of the stuff that we are arguing against now or at any other time on the podcast, but there is an uncomfortable and maybe societally unhealthy response of, all right, you're out. You know, like you were friends with this person, you wanted to help this person. There is no nuance. You are out by association. I mean, in a lot of ways, the cancel culture, it's not going to produce a happy, unified, forward-thinking society, you know? And you're right. People do need to be told if you believe they are wrong, if it's important enough, not always, but told in what way, right? Told in a way that will get them to change their minds? Or do we just want to yell at them and, you know, like not understand where anybody's coming from? And even to say that sounds a little bit like I'm arguing in favor of them, right? And I think that's a problem. That's the problem, is that
Brandon,
like I'm arguing for them. You know?
In the thread, in our offline conversation, Brandon mentioned this. What's worse? Do you just ignore it and not give them an audience? Or is it more important to be informed consumers so we can make these decisions for ourselves? Like, do we just ignore it and not give any kind of credence to it or airspace? However, they still have megaphones. Do we still ignore it? They still have audiences that they're indoctrinating. Do we still ignore it?
I'm not saying ignore it.
Oh, no. I'm talking about, you're talking about the idea of don't jump and cancel, which I completely agree with. Do your homework, understand what you're doing. But it goes the other way too, where we can't be so passive that we're never aware of where we put our allegiance or we put our money. Passivity
is not at all. But that's part of the problem. The dichotomy seems yell or silence, you know?
Yeah. I think conversations like this is the in-between. Be completely aware of the context of where these things come from, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening with Len, but he's doing some weird stuff for the audio listeners.
I love M'Baku back there.
You got like
he's done.
Problem? What's up?
I don't know what's happening.
He's done.
Nice.
Oh, wait, hang on. In comic books, I think it was this week or last week in one of the Empire tie-ins, I got to find out what that meant in Wakanda.
Yeah, in Bombay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
In Bombay.
Yeah. It's never been explained.
Hold fast.
Have they said that before? Is that a thing?
I never knew it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it was in the movie, yeah.
Movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Empire number 3. Yeah.
Yeah. Samuel David says, agreed, Brian. You can't force people to do anything. You don't want to ignore it, but you won't change anyone's mind by trying to force someone to think like you. There has to be another way.
Right. It can't just be like Kingdom Come, right? They got to a point where they just fought each other. Who was a hero? Who was a villain? They were just fighting each other. And Superman and everybody, they were like, this is not how it should be done, right?
Yeah, and you know, I'm on Twitter, and so I can see most of this discourse, if it could be called that, is taking place on Twitter, and it has gotten to the point where it's just, Comicsgate and then everyone else trying to dunk on each other.
Yeah.
That's not furthering any conversation. It's just, oh, well, you did this. Oh, well, I did this. Well, you did this. And it's just this, two Spider-Men pointing at each other over and over again.
It's a fight, right? It doesn't. What do we really want? A better world. That won't produce it. But how do we do it? We don't know, so we fight.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that, but I'm also slightly sensitive to how somebody like me, how privileged of a perspective it is to have. I'm not being persecuted.
Yeah.
I'm not being homogenized. I'm not being threatened. How privileged I am to be able to step back and say, hey, let's discuss this. Because I'm not the one being trampled or felt like I'm in a time clock of being silenced, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So that's the other argument towards let's just all hash it out. Like, no, be mad. You deserve to be mad. You're being silenced. Be angry. Sure, there's a second step. There's like that second phase of now we address it.
Right.
But a lot of times these arguments turn into, well, that's not the way to get them to listen. Like, fuck you. Let them be angry because they deserve this for a second. And then we'll talk about the quelling the masses and
right. But I'm not saying they shouldn't be angry, right? And that's the danger that we're in is that you can be angry and still understand the other side. And and you can be angry on somebody else's behalf and still see where another group is coming from. And the only reason to see where they're coming from is to help change their minds, right? It's not like, hey, why don't we all play together and you hate some people, whatever, it's all good. I'll look the other way. You know what I mean? It's to help change their mind. I need to know where it comes from so we can rip it out,
Well, you know what? Honestly, as an organism, the Comicsgate itself, I mean, they are, in my perspective, they are an imposing force to the relatively safe equilibrium that was comic books before. Like it's storytelling for lessons. As all great like
I think of that the morality porn, right? Like always do
absolutely.
The right thing, and I love that. And
absolutely. And as soon as it was widened to include other people, it became an issue. And that's just empirically wrong, right? Like, because the morality remained, the lessons are the same, the stories are being told very similarly.
Yeah.
So the only difference is that it's not this specific sex, race, or gender. I mean, empirically, you're wrong to argue that it's no longer viable, right? If it was working for you before, like just mathematically, that makes no sense. Like, I told JD this before. The reason why I think, and I just realized it, the reason why I think I'm loving Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is because it's a different voice and perspective that I have never, ever read before. The current writer is writing a storyline, or Sophie Campbell, who's transgender, is writing a storyline about people who were against their will put into different bodies that they were born with and how they're dealing with it. This is a Saturday morning cartoon spinoff that is dealing with a point of view and perspective about transformation that I have never felt before in a mainstream comic.
Well, that's what we're saying, is that when you do it behind the scenes, those people have new, fresh perspective. I never thought of that with the Ninja Turtles. She did, and that's why it's good to have them behind the scenes.
But to a lot of these people, that would be considered a diversity hire. Or like it was unearned. And that's absolute bullshit, and it's wrong, and it should be called out.
Yeah.
Agreed.
14 hours later.
Anything else?
No, man.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah. Been a long, lonely.
And another thing. No.
Yeah. Let's all just try to make everything good all the time for the future and for the present.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us with a CultPop podcast. We will go live every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Where we will review that comic. What?
10:30-ish.
Right. Yeah, 10:30-ish. Christopher St. Saucy Goodnight will be there at 10:31, wondering why we're late.
10:29. Yeah.
And you can email us at cultpopgo@gmail.com or
blacktribbles@gmail.com.
Yeah. That's it. What's our next book club? In case anyone wants to read along at home.
Lucifer. Volume 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
by Mike Carey and Peter Gross, right?
Now, there's a few others artists in there at the beginning, but yeah.
Well, old school Lucifer, not the new series. There's multiple volume 1s. Be clear which volume 1 it is.
You got it. Yeah. Also, it contains more than I realized. I just looked at it last night, and I was like, oh, yeah. I thought this would be volume 2.
Nice.
Also, I think it'd be cool if anyone wants to comment on the YouTube video, like about what we were discussing. That'd be cool, too.
Yeah.
I'll look at them. I don't know about everyone else, but yeah.
Yeah, we get notifications.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
All right. I guess that's it. Brandon, where can the people find you?
Here. In my living room. Well, my dining room. That's about it.
Do you have a Twitter? Do you have a...
I mean, yeah, but don't worry about it.
All right.
Don't talk to me. You can find me here every Saturday morning or on the YouTube channel, CultPop Podcast, Facebook page and social media, or you can directly at me at Mr. Bartocci on Twitter. It's written right there. MRBARTOCCI.
Ryan.
I also am here on the show, as we all are, on Sunday mornings. I'm at brianleibdesign.com, and there's also an email associated, brianleibdesign@gmail.com. If you feel the need to contact me, do so.
Glenn.
Hey, you can holler at a Tribble any place you find a Black Tribbles on social media. Find our podcast. We stream live every Thursday night at 9 p.m. The Black Tribbles live. Check us out. Also do another podcast, the Michaud Mission 2-Man 1 podcast. Every black film ever made. We stream live on Tuesday nights. You can go to Michaud Mission on YouTube or on Facebook and check out our show Tuesdays at 6 p.m. This week we are doing Baps, starring Halle Berry. That promises to be a lot of fun. So holla at a Tribble, hit me up.
Len, how far in would you say you are with every, like, what percentage of every black film ever made are you at right now?
I think we are rounding 2%. 2% of black films that have ever been made.
All right.
Yeah.
So this will be on for a while.
It'll be this is episode 216, and we've got a lot more ahead of us.
Cool.
I guess that's it. Email, you could tweet at me at JD's Hero Complex. Thank you so much for hanging out with us for most of your Sunday. We will see you next week. Oh, also, we'll probably be tossing up some Thunder rounds later in the week, in the midweek. Those are a separate thing now, so let us know if there's anything you want us to do a Thunder round on.
Thunder round.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we will talk